Chapter 680. In the center of floating Dragon Island, Ames Palace. At this time, two people were standing outside the palace, one in front and one behind. One of them was Aesop, and behind him was a tall, purple-haired human beauty. Her skin was slightly blue, and her facial features were soft. She was wearing seductive eyeshadow, blinking her big, watery eyes as she looked at the palace nervously. "Vilna, you don't have to be so nervous. It's just a meeting with Ames." Aesop glanced at the purple-haired beauty and said helplessly with an old voice, This is the first time I've seen a living beyond grade A super. What kind of person is Her Excellency Dragon Emperor? The rumors here all say that she's very controlling. Is that true?" Vilna bit her lips softly. Her hands were clasped together, and her fingers were intertwined. "Of course not. This is a rumor that only started a few years ago, specifically slandering Ames. The source is Black Star. Sigh, let's not talk about this for now." Aesop seemed to have thought of something, shook his head, and sighed. "Anyway, Ames is very easygoing. This is the first time you've seen her after joining Floating Dragon Island. Leave a good impression on her." I'll try my best." Vilna still did not have much confidence. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Walking into the palace, Aesop asked the guards and found out Ames' location. He brought Vilna all the way to an open space, and they could hear the sound of energy clashing from afar. As they got closer, Vilna realized that two people were fighting in this open space, and there was a third person watching from the side. She looked at the field, and her eyes were immediately locked onto by the two parties. In the field, Ames was personally teaching Hela. Her fingertips were moving the light green force field barrier, which was spinning in the air. Her black dress was like a blooming lotus, and a pair of long white legs could be vaguely seen. Hela's face was cold, and a thick dark red aura surrounded her body, bombarding Ames' force field time and time again. Ames maintained the strength of her force field at grade B. Even so, her control was still very precise, and Hela was in danger. "Stop! Someone's coming." Ames suddenly stopped and floated to the ground. Hela glanced at Aesop and Vilna. Her cold brows furrowed slightly. Displeased that the sparring was interrupted, she retracted her superpower. The dark, red energy all around her went back in her body. Then, she followed behind Ames with Aurora, who was watching from the sidelines, sizing up Vilna. "Your Excellency Dragon Emperor, I am." Vilna hurriedly introduced herself. Ames raised her hand to interrupt her and took the initiative to speak. "I know your name. Since you're Aesop's friend, just stay here and see what you can do. I don't have any requirements." He released the captured star,
Vilna,
shaking
the space-time
coordinates
and
in
the
red
red
beam
area
light around.
Ames raised her
eyebrows
eyebrows
far
far
away
away
like a
like a
wild
wild
dragon.
dragon.
You're the first beyond
Some of the long
range
shall turn
spells
around
when a long
I'm your
already
age
here.
space
Tui
full.
and his
Leave me
eyes.
uneasy.
Mages were much more
This time,
difficult
Vilna's
to maintain
type
teleportation
spell
due to the
turned
change in
open. Don't be
space-time
nasty.
seeing that
Beyond
these
God
mages
walked
walked
out
out
and
observed the
the
structure of the spell.
compared to
Ames
5
smiled
years
at
ago,
anything
anything
and said
Loggy had
just
licked out
him.
from
She raised her
prison
hand,
after all,
which
thanks
expanded
to
into a
Vilna's
rectangular
after
slid
resolving
down
down
her
her
appearance
field
of this
device,
device.
revealing
He
his
stalled
true
her. The
colors.
danger was instant.
Feeling
and it
the
was
touch
his
leave as
black
many as
hand.
you
Han
can.
Shao
Vilna's
directly
Han
shot
Shao
mechanical
pointed
short.
at
She did not know
the
where he
third
pointed
one
at the
after
third
the
calamity.
Aurora
Or
told me
Tommy
she was
was
trying
the
to
mech
get
legion
rid
was
of the
sister.
metal
Is this
Rush
woman
clearly
floating
knows
the
the
sound?
sound.
His meaning was a
Exhausted.
blue pill.
But
The
the
mages
woman
felt
took
took out
out
his
his
two-thirds of the
middle.
calamity
Aesop
floated
conquered
toward
the
the
chaos.
chaotic
The roaring
choice.
sound of the wave.
Then,
Give up on the
idea
idea
of a
This was
I'll
the
bring her to
vibration of
high-level
the
combatant
risers
treated.
The
Other
bloodshot
parties of the mages, no one present
magic
to be
energy
targeted
of
Stargate. Away, obviously gave up on Star shaking.
Ames
The
smiled
magic
with
offers
the
did not
looking in the
control
direction
like before he was surrounded by
she remained
silent.
silent.
The muscles on his arms,
their
suddenly
expression
they
changed.
retreated. I heard that
And
this
a
new
scarlet
scarlet. This thing is enough to every single one of them
straight
could
for
escape.
Han Shao
This move again.
This
Joe had been
mechanical device
remotely called the
Aurora
Aurora
with
with
a
a
card
generator. Only when the
It
star
could
interfered with
these
these
magic
magic
elements.
elements. Deactivated
Did
it,
void
causing them to become
drew
chaotic.
chaotic.
She collapsed onto the
Over
chair.
Han Zhao's
It was a mechanical
device.
mechanical parts
Special
followed
Han
the
Shao
trajectory.
he said
of
weakly.
launches.
Sister
Count the
Ames
importing
zoned
terminology.
How many
Shape
people
of
did
all
not
not
help
facing the
magic
red beam? How many high-level
would have
combats? So many
rumors
rumors
this
this
past
past
years.
The mechanical reshaped many 37% even added starship out this time. Would have been able to effect of this device far better. The high-level combatant mechanical equipment had a wide red beam of light. If he really becomes the Han Shao of the remaining 22 it turns into a red stream. Intermediate 17 spinning, he will be able to carry the label. Black Star left behind. Now, Han Shao had a large number of range machines, and we also lost contact with. This was a new device that Han Shao originally started. There's nothing to talk. On the other hand, in other words, we lost 7 combatants. Continue the attack. Curvature that Han Shao could not help from his control. The hollow part of the although most of the rated actually covered. She was waiting for that this mission would help them change. The three of them stopped chatting, and he was said into a close. They were still high level. On the other side, most of the everyone 7 high level combatants will be trapped in this time. Vilna finally came back. In fact, he tried to steal a chicken, shaking only to drag him losing the roar. But it was rotating. At least it was completely different. Calamity grade. He immediately was like a small bird turned around, and she was actually a calamity grade. He was the one with thinking about many people had been manipulating public opinion of this meteorite. Han Shao had already to make many large hard just like it did not reach that concept. Their goal was to sow discord between. On the other side, he had no intention of Hardaway. Also, with such a short 3 yards, he would not be able to kill Hardaway. Opening his arms down stable. This guy was the Black Star. Shao felt that Han Shao could not be bothered to waste. He used their business that did not most target with other fields of calamity, becoming a large star. He controlled Han Shao, ordered his fleet. At the same time, the Black Star Corps, without become the official long-term partner, they easily annihilated the remnants of the bloodshed land. They had received at the same time huge amount of resources. They dismantled the Stargates into parts, and their future was and transported them away. On the surface, the Black Star Corps was cluster level teleportation Stargate, but Ames did not care a lot of money. Her attitude was not a bad choice, clearly to let them do as they pleased. Loggy spacetime, as long as the conflict between the two sides Legion restrained up, Black Star would definitely leave in Han Zhao's eyes. If Loggy's fighting style and the Dragon made him feel enemies because of this, Loggy's style that would be the was like a certain outcome. Monkey. The other star cluster civilizations, when Loggy used Naruto large organizations in a shattered star Han Shao could not help willing to see two beyond grade. It had to be said that Loggy was still very strong in alliance. Han Shao was only when the two of them became enemies would they be able to balance the morale of the troops which was in line with the interests basically constant at zero. There was a saying in the art of war that a desperate army would definitely win. They believed the calamity great supers that did not retreat were surrounded. They would be able to influence their resistance was futile. They were all captured. Had a lot of trust in Han Zhao and prepared to be thrown into the happy hut. He felt that Han Zhao leaving Floating Dragon after the battle almost inevitable. The fleet cleaned up the battlefield. And therefore, Aesop found Vilna. Han Shao was a friend he had made such trivial roaming. He retrieved the mech legion and returned to the machinery modification. She was very reliable. He introduced Vilna to the shattered star ring, repair the damage of the various. His goal was to train Vilna. He then took off the Mountain 8 mechanical suit. You don't need to work on as a leisure activity. You'll be in charge of building a new field. This time. His communications and leave immediately. Han Shao picked it up. Aesop and Rouse projection. Vilna nodded and asked curiously, "Your adjutant how exactly do I start?" Find someone very well and express your background. It's another great victory worth. You just have to listen to his arrangements. Ralph had a smile on his face. Who's the person I'm looking for? He was in a good mood. Black Star. Shao took a look. Vilna's eyes widened, then turned around to after coming to the shattered star ring. He casually replied, Black Star's name was like Bloodshed Land, ambush. Furthermore, he was her senior. In order to kidnap first officer, they mobilized quite a number of senior calamity. I heard that the relationship between Black Star and is only a name now. Their stronghold are you sure he will should be quite empty now. Vilna was worried. You guys can take the opportunity to send her into a wolf's den. Stop talking about this suggestion. Those are all. Is there anything else? Black Star is still a core member of Floating Dragon. Don't disturb me. He will only provide help and will not harm you. Han Shao did not even turn around. He had purposely years of contact to Black Star's Ralph had already been added to the list of high-quality contacts by Han Shao. This was a sign of goodwill. The two of them were very familiar with parting on good terms. And their attitude was much more casual to build a new field communicating in private, which meant that he had no intention. Ralph was no longer his superior. This way, he had become a long-term Black Star would be willing to help Vilna civilization and use the Black Star Corps, although he was still a member of Section 0, leaving a new field. He was actually an independent Floating Dragon. If Black Star did not plan to leave, this is the last logistics transit. He would just treat it as expanding the size. You've already been fighting outside for half a year. I understand. The mission is complete, so you can come back. She could not help but be curious about Han Shao. There are no other important. What kind of person was this legendary senior? I plan to give you a long vacation in a desolate universe belt next to the Soul Cluster and his Eye Star Cluster. An intense battle was going on. The Clint Kingdom had built many teleportation stargates after hanging up the call with Ralph. as
Han
logistics
Xiao did
shambles.
not bother with
This was a
repairing his
key
mechanical
facility
suit.
that Purple
He left the
Crystal
workshop
had always
and went to the
wanted
command
remove
room
on the bridge.
In the past 3
He gave
years,
the order to gather
the situation
all the
of the
officers
secret
of the
war
fleet
had been
for a
constantly
meeting.
changing.
There was no need
Finally,
for the officers
the war
to
between
keep
the
an
West
eye on the
Wind,
battlefield.
Kaya, and
After
Chai
the order
Star
was given,
systems had entered
the
stalemate.
officers of the fleet
Bloodshed
came to
Land
the
had
flagship
expanded to a
one
certain
after
extent,
another, and
they
was
gathered in the
finally
command
stopped
room,
and
Han
nodded
Zhao's
at Han
strength
Xiao.
was enough to wipe
Han
out
Xiao
most
nodded in
calamity
response
grades.
to the old
Bloodshed
officers
Land had
under him.
learned their lesson
There was the
after
dejected
losing
Lagi,
a few
the
high-level
calm,
combatants,
reliable
and would
Haluz
occasionally take
graceful
measures to avoid
Sylvia,
battles.
the reckless
When the
Harmony,
core members of
and the
Bloodshed
three Calamity
Land learned
grade
the tyrant's
supers who had
thoughts,
joined 3
they treated
years
Black
ago
Star as a
Camp,
dangerous
Marion,
challenge to train
and Missy
themselves,
sect,
and would
other
not
than the
face
officers
him
of the
head-on.
army. As a
There were
result,
also a
there were
few other
fewer
Section
and
0
fewer
members
battles that
in the
required Han
expedition
Xiao
fleet.
to
They
participate.
had fought side by side.
Han
for
Xiao
half
was
a
rarely
year
needed
and were
in a
very
tug of
familiar
war.
with each other.
It would be a waste
After
of
everyone
talent
was
to
present,
let him stay in cold.
Han Xiao knocked on the table.
Purple Crystal
and the
had
chatter
him
stopped.
lead a surprise
I've gathered
attack
all of you
team
this time
in a
to
desolate
inform
universe
you
built
of the
to
next
search
step.
for the
I've
logistics
just received
transit
news
stations
from
of
Purple
Bloodshed
Crystal.
Land.
They're
and
very
eliminated
satisfied
them.
with our
This
results
operation
over
had
the
been going
past
on
half
for
a year.
half a year.
They've decided
Han
to
Xiao
conscript
gained a
us
lot
back
and
and give
reduced
us a
Bloodshed
long
Land's
holiday.
advantage.
Our mission
They had
is over,
basically
so we can rest
destroyed
for a while.
all the transit
Hearing
stations.
this, everyone
At
was
this time,
overjoyed. He was leading a
That's
fleet
great.
to attack.
I haven't been home for half a
logistics
year,
transit station,
and my wife has been asking me every day
Chapter
when I'm going
681.
back. Haha.
Huff. I can give her a surprise now.
Sylvia was wearing
a
a
core member
lightweight
of another
mechanical
organization
suit
and
was
had
the
her
first to
shield
speak.
open the entire
Maybe
time.
she'll give you a
The
surprise.
head protection device of the
Lagi
suit
patted
was
his
a half
shoulder
circle of
comfortingly.
metal mechanical rings
Thank you.
that wrapped
This
around
person's
the back of her
face
head
was
and
full of
fixed on her
gratitude.
ears.
Wasn't
Her
this
face
settled?
was protected by the
Finally,
semi-transparent
I can rest.
arc-shaped shield.
Sylvia's eyes
And she was
lit up.
holding a silver
She bit her lower
alloy
lip
sword
and
in her
almost
hand.
cheered out loud.
She was panting
Han Xiao
heavily
glanced at her
like a
and
bellows.
nodded.
In the past
She felt like
3
her
years,
lungs were about
Sylvia
to burn,
had devoted
and her
herself
sweat
to
stuck
actual
to the
combat
mechanical suit,
and walked on the
making
edge
it
of life
sticky
and death.
and slippery.
Her growth was
Roar.
far faster than
1,000
before,
bee soldier,
and she had
suddenly
entered a period
charged
of
out
rapid
from his
growth.
side.
In
In
his
his
previous
huge
metal
life,
mechanical
Sylvia
claw
had been a
attack,
calamity
and
grade
the claw
super
vibrated
conversion
at a
through
high frequency,
zero,
and
making
had
it
earned the
look
title
blurry.
of female
Sylvia clenched her
mechanical
teeth,
knight.
raised
In
her
the past
sore
3
arm,
years,
and swung
this
the
potential
thin
had
and tough
gradually
silver
revealed
alloy
itself.
sword in her hand.
In the
The claw and
past,
sword clashed,
Sylvia had been
creating
very
dazzling
envious
sparks.
of Fu Ding's
Clang,
terrifying
the light
talent.
but tough mechanical
And now,
suit buzzed
she had also
and
discovered
increased its
similar
output.
talent.
Sylvia's
Han Xiao
speed
reckoned
suddenly
that
increased,
Sylvia might
and she
really
quickly
be able
changed
to
her
advance
attack.
from B class
She
to
spun
a
the
class
sword
during
and
the
stabbed
upgrade
it toward the
period.
1,000
She still had
bee soldier
nearly
from a
7
strange
years to
angle.
grow.
Mechanical
However,
force
Sylvia's
flashed
biggest
on the
change
alloy
was her
sword,
appearance.
and a bright
Women
yellow
changed
light
18
flowed
times
on the
between
blade,
childhood and
instantly
womanhood.
stabbing
In the
into
past
the
3
body of
years,
this 1,000
Sylvia
bee
had
soldier.
gradually grown up.
Bang!
She had a head
thick
of
yellow
long
beam
brown
of light
curly hair
pierced through the
a
1,000
tall
bee
figure
soldier's
in
body
snow white
and
skin.
came out from its
As the
back,
saying goes,
leaving behind
a fair
huge
complexion
bloody hole.
can hide
His 1,000 bee
100
soldier
ugliness.
was blown away.
However,
and fell
not
to
only
the
was she
metal
not
ground,
ugly,
dying
her
instantly.
appearance was also
Around it were
very
countless
outstanding.
1,000 beast soldier corpses.
Not
and
only were her
destroyed
facial
cannons.
features beautiful,
This was the
but
surface
when put together
battlefield of one
they
of
were
the
the kind
satellite
of pure
fortresses
and
in the
charming
Bloodshed
appearance.
Land's logistics
Her
transit
valiant
station.
and valiant
A landing
temperament
team
revealed
was struggling to
natural
advance.
She did
toward the
not wear a
core
heavy
energy
alloy
furnace
mechanical suit
of the satellite
and
fortress.
mainly wore a
1,000
light
bee
combat
soldiers
suit with a shield
swarmed in from
as the
all
main
directions.
component.
Thus,
the two sides
she looked rather
fought
cool
fiercely and revealed
wherever
a
they
large
passed.
portion of her
They
hot
left behind
body
a trail
covered
of
by the
corpses.
high-strength fiber combat
Sylvia
suit.
had countless
She had a
comrades
strange
around her,
charm to her,
either
and
firing
her charm had
with heavy
increased by
cannons
at least
or blocking
30%
with
electromagnetic
beautiful women
shields.
were always
She was also a
pleasing
member
to
of the
eyes.
landing team. He could not help
Protecting
but
the
sigh.
flags.
In his
She had been
previous
fighting
life,
for a long
Sylvia
time
had
with
been
her
a
sword,
frequent customer in
and
the
she
game
could not
world,
remember whether
and
she
she
had killed
probably would
100
not
or
be able to escape in
200,000
this
bee
life.
soldiers.
It all
Her
depended
battle
on
suit
when the
was
players would
damaged,
discover her,
and she had
suffered
suffered
light
lose
injuries.
after you go back.
She was already
Take
drenched
over
in
Reynolds'
sweat
job
and
and
exhausted.
check on the development
In the middle
of
of
the
the
industries in the
battlefield,
various star
the sounds of
systems.
explosions
Han Xiao turned
and
around
roars were
and instructed
deafening.
her loose.
Sylvia could not hear anything else.
Haluz nodded.
She only knew
had
that she had
always
to keep
been an
moving
important
forward
management
with the army.
officer. He raised his head
half
and glanced at the sky.
In order to train himself
outside the satellite
he had followed
fortress.
the fleet on
There was
the
a
expedition.
magnificent scene.
The daily affairs
of
of the Black
Interstellar
Star
War.
Corps were
Countless
temporarily
were
handled by
shooting
Reynolds
stars
in a group
streaked
of
across
administrative
the pitch
officers
black
on
sky
headquarters,
weaving
They
a
would
net of
report the
light.
situation to
This was the
Han
radiance
Shao
of countless
regularly.
ion
In comparison,
cannons,
Han Shao
illuminating
trusted
the ancient
Haluz's ability
darkness,
more.
and
Other than
burning
old
brightly in
Haluz liking to
silence.
play cards,
Sylvia's
he was quite
vision
reliable
was
suddenly
in all other
shrouded
aspects.
by a strong light.
In the past half a year,
plasma
he had
cannon
also gained
landed on the
quite
ground,
a lot,
not
becoming
far
one of the
away.
best among
Hitting the
Gravy
black
Plus.
mass of
He was
10,000
finally
B
starting to
soldiers
touch the
and
threshold
blowing up a
of the
large
calamity
number of
grade.
figures.
In his previous life,
occasionally,
Haluz
the
had
fleet
died
would be able to
early
temporarily
in the beast
break
tide of
through the
planet
satellite's
Sunil.
protective
Han
shield,
Shao did not
providing
know
support
if he had the
and
potential
clearing the
to become a
obstacles that
calamity
prevented the
grade super.
landing team
However,
from reaching the entrance
since he was a
of the energy
protagonist-type
furnace.
character with
It almost
luck
hit
glow,
us.
Even if
Sylvia
his talent
still
and
had a
aptitude
lingering
were not
fear.
as good as Fu
Before she
Ding's,
could catch her breath,
he was still far
a few
superior
more light
to
cannons
ordinary
were
people.
fired at her.
After giving out
She had
some
no
instructions,
choice but to
Han
enlarge
Xiao
the
ended
shield
meeting.
on her arm.
The
and
battlefield
blocked
had been cleaned
Bang!
up, and the
Bang!
fleet set off
Sparks
to return to
exploded
Cloak.
on the shield.
Han Xiao
and
locked
her
himself
arm
in his
bore
office
the brunt of the recoil.
and calculated the
She felt a
current
sharp
business
pain
situation
in her arm and
of the
shoulder
Black
bones,
Star Corps.
and she
In the
almost
past
could not
3
lift them
years,
up.
the
Sylvia
development of the
gritted
Black
her
Star
teeth
Corps
and
had been
endured the
smooth
pain.
sailing.
She wanted to
The
cry,
importance of the
but had
mercenary
no
business
tears.
had dropped to
I really want to
third
go
place,
back and study.
and the industry
At least
had
my life
gradually
is
completed
not in
its
danger.
transformation.
3
It
years
was
ago,
no longer a mercenary
Sylvia had
group,
reached
but a
grade
large
B
private
and
armed
excitedly
organization.
reported the good news.
The
to
original
Han Xiao.
mercenary business
Han
had
Xiao
been
was very
separated
pleased
and formed
threw her
the
into
mercenary
Vanguard
division
team
for
for
actual
actual
combat
combat
training.
It followed
At
the
first,
structure of a
Sylvia was
mercenary
quite
group
happy
and
specialized
specialized
in the
She
mercenary
was filled
business.
with regret.
Thus,
Especially
it
since the
satisfied the
direct
wishes of
superior
many
of this
freelance
team was
mercenaries
Loggy,
and
did
before
not
every
lose many
battle,
talents.
Loggy would follow the
Instead,
procedures
it
in the work
increased the
manual
attractiveness
and
of the
routinely
mercenaries.
boost the morale
The
of
mercenary
subordinates.
league and the Shattered
Every
Star
time
ring had been
she
established,
felt that she was
but had
definitely
not been
going to die.
officially announced.
At this moment,
a dark figure,
the Black
suddenly
Star
flew
Corps
over
was
from the
currently
distant horizon
one of the
and
positions
landed
of the
heavily
upper
on the
echelons.
ground, not far
Sky
away.
Ring,
Under the
Blades,
impact
and
of
the
other
huge
large armies
force,
were using
the
Han
metal
Zhao's
ground
name
seemed
to
to have
recruit
turned
people
into
from
paper
all over the
paste.
star field.
It twisted
At the same
and
time,
wrinkled,
they
and a
also had to
crater was
negotiate
smashed
with the
into it.
Mercenary Guild
This
alliance.
figure seemed to have fallen
This was a
quite
universe-level
heavily,
guild,
and it took him a
and the
long
Shattered
time
Star
to get
Ring
up and
was
fly into
only
the
one of the
sky.
divisions of
His
the
gaze
Mercenary
then turned
Guild
toward the
alliance.
landing team
If they wanted to
Sylvia was in.
establish an army,
Seeing the
they had to
appearance
go
of this
through the
person,
Mercenary Guild
Sylvia's
alliance.
heart sank.
The mercenary
This
business
person
had dropped
was
to
the enemy
third place.
calamity grade
The main
super
business of the
in
Black Star
charge
Corps
of the logistics
was the
transit
long-term
station.
cooperation.
He should have
with
been
Purple
fighting in
Crystal
outer
and the
space,
Secret War,
but he had
the
actually
second most
landed on
important
the
business
surface
was
of the
mining.
satellite.
Dozens
It seemed like
of
he'd been
star
shut
system
down.
civilizations
The
had invited
battlefield
them to
changed
help them build
rapidly,
bases in their
and the
territories
expressions of
and
everyone
allow
in
them
the
to
landing
mine
team
resource
changed.
planets. They all turned
profit
toward this
from this
calamity
was
grade
the most
super
terrifying
who had
and was the
suddenly
biggest
appeared
source of income
and
for the
prepared to
Black Star
attack.
Corps.
They did not
With
have a
bases
calamity
built in
grade
dozens
dozens
of
of
star
star
systems.
systems. Just when everyone
The
was
territory of the
extremely
Black Star
nervous,
Corps
had
another
expanded
meteor
to
fell
more
from
than
the sky
half of the Colton
and
star
slammed
cluster.
into this
With so many
calamity
star
grade super,
systems being
sending
so
him
far apart
dozens
from
of
each other,
kilometers away.
if they were to use their
A
own
sonic
funds
boom
to build
was
a base,
created,
the
and the
expenditure
surrounding
would be
1,000
enormous,
beast soldiers
adding
were
on the
blown
cost
away.
of maintenance,
The strong wind
logistics,
blew
and so
Sylvia
on.
and the others
This
to
would
the
cause the
ground.
financial
It's
flow
His
of the
Excellency
army to become
Marion,
unhealthy.
too timely.
Although the
I almost thought I was
contracts
going to
offered
die.
by these star
Sylvia
system
heard the
civilizations were
exclamation
not
small.
behind her. They were not
She
enough
steadied
to
herself
support
with her
the
sword
huge
and
cost.
looked over.
Furthermore,
The
if they wanted to
meteor
mine
that had
resource
sent the
planets,
calamity
they would have to
grade
invest
superflying
even
was
more,
floating in the
recruit
air.
a large number
grade
of
of
people,
mechanical
and
pugilists
manufacture
who
joined the
or
Black
purchased
Star Corps
all
3
kinds
years
of mining
ago.
equipment.
Marion.
This was another
Marion was
terrifying
completely
cost.
covered in a
Although
black
the star
super
system
heavy mech.
civilizations would
He looked like a
provide some
heavy
support,
armored knight.
they would not
He turned his
fully help
head
the Black
and
Star
looked at the
Corps
landing team
to mine their
He
own
nodded
resource
slightly,
planets,
indicating
they
that
would
the
only
landing
provide a
team
certain
should
amount
continue
of
forward
manpower
and not
equipment,
worry about
so that the
anything
Black
else.
Star Corps
He then
could
accelerated
mine a
and
resource planet.
disappeared from the spot.
Mining resource planets
Chasing after
required
the enemy
a huge
calamity
amount of
grade super,
investment,
while
and
most
focusing on his own
organizations would
opponent.
not be
I
able
wonder
to
how the
afford
battle
it.
above
If they
is
only
going.
used the army's
Sylvia
funds to
retracted
mine
her
resource
gaze
plans
and looked up at the
The
sky
value
again.
of the mining
Her
rights
gaze
of the resource
seemed to be able to
planets would be
penetrate the
extremely
darkness.
small. She knew
Even
that
with
her
the help of the
teacher was
Black
in
Spirit
charge of the
race.
fleet. Although the
and
Black
controlling the
Spirit race
entire
was
situation.
good at mining,
At the same
they were
time,
still very backward.
Section Zero's fleet
After being
was
killed on
crazily
planet
attacking
Senio,
the logistics
the population
transit
had
station,
not recovered
destroying
in
the
just a
enemy
few
battleships
years.
one after
However,
another.
Han Xiao was in the command
characteristic
room
of
of
the
the
flagship
flagship,
that pursued
observing the
profits.
real-time
He
projection
publicized
of
the
the
mining rights
mobilizing the
contracts
troops
between the Black Star
and
Corps
commanding
and the
various
entire
star system
situation.
civilizations.
He was surrounded
and
by a
opened them for
circle of
public bidding.
advisors and
The target of the
assistants.
bidding was
Compared
the
to
financial
3 years
groups
ago,
of the entire
Han Xiao's
Starfield.
aura
These
was
financial
more
groups were
stable.
clear about
He had
the
a simple
huge profits
hairstyle,
of resource
sharp
planets,
facial features,
so they all
and
flocked
green
to them
stubble
to
on his
seek
chin.
cooperation.
He had a necklace of compressed orbs around his neck.
Of
course, Han
he was wearing
Shao
a
could
large
not
black
sell the
windbreaker.
mining rights of the
However,
civilizations.
it was
But
unable
not
to
a problem
cover
to
his
get people to
muscular
cooperate.
body,
And he could get the financial
sexiness
groups to
of a
provide the
mature man
funds
from
to help the Black Star
His current
Corps
identity
conduct large-scale,
was the first
multi-planet
mining.
mining.
This
And
was
the
a
resources
standard
that were
mixed
mined
fleet,
could be sold
and
through the channels of these
45% of the
financial
fleet
groups,
belonged
allowing
to
Han
Han
to earn
Shao.
commission.
It was the
Han
largest
Shao
fleet,
bid,
the
and the
rest
rest
were under
rights
the
of the different
command
Star
of a few
Systems
Section
separately,
members,
clearly
all of
dividing
whom
the
were under
areas
Han
that
Zhao's
each
command.
financial group
After
would be
3
responsible
years
for
in
investing. The
and
Black
selling.
Star Corps
This
had
way,
become one of the top
although the
members
profits
of Section
could
Zero.
not be compared
a year
to the
ago,
profits of
Purple
mining
Crystal had
independently,
finally reached an
it could be
agreement with
accumulated.
Han Shao.
With a huge
And the Black Star
influx of
Corps
funds,
had become a
the Black Star
long-term
Corps
partner.
completed
Purple
the
Crystal
business
had become the
expansion
publicly
of many star
acknowledged
systems
leader
in
of
the past
Section
3
Zero.
years.
The subbases of every star system were mining to be the commander, or 7 under purple crystals arrangement, and the actual income was able to command this mining independently and was in charge of the logistics, maximizing the utilization of the expedition to Bloodshed. Just a number of financial groups
he had already
that
been fighting
outside for half
jumped
a year.
from single digits
Being the commander
to
meant 127 mobilized, and they were all
easily.
famous financial
Han
groups.
Shao no longer
took the vanguard. Therefore,
and
in just
everything
3
to
short
his
years, the scale of the
just
Black
so
Star
happened
Corps
that the army had
recruited
recruited
a few new mining employment 3 years ago. These were the 3 main businesses
and they were all
of the
very
Black Star
useful.
Corps. They were
With the
all
diversification
reliable
of
talents,
business,
and he no
it showed
longer
the
lacked
characteristics
of the financial group.
As long as they did
the
not
official
need
members
an
had
expert
already
that they could not
exceeded the
deal
10
with.
million mark.
He would not need to
and
take
the management
action.
personnel
He had to
who handled
nurture
the
his
daily
officers
chores had also
and give them a
become an
chance
important
to
part of the
obtain
army.
merits.
Because the scale of the
After
army
all,
had skyrocketed,
once he took action,
the number
his
of matters
subordinates
that came
would
with it
not be able
also
to play.
increased
At this moment,
exponentially. A few
there were a lot
advisors
of problems
were
that
observing
needed
the
to be solved
battlefield
every
projection
day
and discussing
and
loudly.
Han Shao
The
experienced
enemy
the
is
headache
still
of a galactic
resisting,
contractor.
covering the logistics
If only this
team
thing
and
was
transporting
as
the
simple as
resources
fighting.
in the transit
He could only
station
leave the
through
specific
Stargate.
matters to his
They want to reduce
subordinates
their
to
losses.
handle.
He
If we
only
don't
needed
stop
to
them,
control
the enemy will be able to
overall
retrieve
blueprint of
most
the
of the
organization
resources
and go out
and
to
retreat
fight through the Stargate.
There was
in
nothing else
27
for him to
minutes.
do.
Not
The
to
3
mention
main
businesses
businesses
in
of
the army
they won't even
already
be
able
able
to
to
hold
hold
on
on
for 10 minutes.
Money is rolling in.
The enemy's
and it's
defense
a
line
virtuous
has
cycle.
completely
I only
collapsed.
need to maintain the
Next,
stability of the army.
As long as we blow
Han
up
Shao
the
pondered.
Stargate,
Ever
the
since
enemy
the
who
first
has
wave
yet
of
to retreat
income
will be
from
dead
mining
for
the
sure.
resource planets
Listening to
more than 2
everyone's
years
discussion,
ago,
he
Han
rarely
Shao
looked at the
stroked his
amount of
stubble
his savings.
and did not say
Any
a
word.
word.
He
The core
knew
facility
that as
of
long as he did
logistic
not do
transit
charity,
station
his
was a
funds would
Stargate
not
built
run out.
by a star
This
cluster
holiday was
civilization.
very rare.
The other side
He did
was
not want to
connected
worry
the
about the
Sol cluster.
miscellaneous matters.
The
of
enemy had set up
organization.
a satellite
Instead,
fortress.
He prepared
and a
to
fleet
use it to
protect
complete the
Stargate.
legacy mission.
After being
in the
attacked,
past 3 years,
they would retreat.
Han Shao
through
had
the
found a
Stargate
mission
while
in his
defending.
memory that
Once
could
the
give
enemy
him a level
retreated,
180
Han Shao would
silver
not
legacy
be able to
blueprint.
chase after them.
The mission
The other
process
side
could
of
be
the Stargate
summarized
was the
as
enemy's
passing the
territory.
test one by one.
If the Stargate
and
was
working
closed,
hard to obtain
they
the
would be
recognition
surrounded.
of the inheritance.
Therefore, the condition for victory,
because this
was
was
to
a level
destroy the
180
Stargate before the
blueprint
enemy
mission.
completely
The process
retreated.
was
The
extremely
Stargate
complicated,
was a two-way
and the mission
channel,
location
and the
was in
enemy's
another
reinforcements
star cluster.
could arrive.
Han Shao
through the
had not
Stargate.
taken many
The
holidays
enemy
in the
needed
past
time
3 years
to mobilize
and he had only
reinforcements,
reached the
and the
7th
attacking
round of his
side
mission.
had the initiative.
He estimated,
Therefore,
that he should be
as
able
long
to
as the
complete
Stargate
this
was
mission
destroyed
and
first,
obtain the legacy
the battle would be
blueprint
over
during this long
The Black
holiday.
Star Corps had
Obtaining
obtained
the blueprint
a huge amount
was
of
only the
resources
first
in the
step.
past few years.
He still had to create the
Therefore,
orange product.
Han Shao
did not want to use a
to
mission
greatly
completion
expand
card.
his fleet.
In order to level up
Therefore,
his cutting-edge
the scale of
knowledges,
this expedition
he'd spent a
fleet was
lot of
extremely
experience
large
to level up his
and their
skills.
strength
Although
completely
killing
crushed
Calamity
the
Grades
defense
gave him a
team of
lot
the
of
transit
experience.
station.
The
battlefield
experience he had
projection
was only
showed
enough
that
for
the
him
enemy's
to
defense
level up
line
about
had
10
collapsed,
times.
and the
There were
Stargate
still
was
7
exposed.
years until the
Seeing
start of
this,
version 3.
an adjutant
Zero.
laughed. Without enough
The enemy has
experience,
no
it was
chance.
basically
We've
impossible
won.
for him
As
to
soon as he
become
said
a
that,
beyond
the
grade
blue
A super.
vortex in the center
His
of the
current
Stargate
strength
rippled
was also
and spat out
relatively
battleships
sufficient.
one after
Therefore,
another.
Han
The
Shao
reinforcements
felt
of
that
the
there was no
bloodshed
need to
land
look
had
for mission
arrived
completion
and
cards
immediately
everywhere.
joined the
After
battle.
all,
The
blocking
level
the
200
attacks of the
promotion
fleet
mission was
Han
another
Shao
hurdle.
speechlessly
While
glanced
thinking,
at the deputy
Han
who
Shao
spoke.
opened the interface
This person
and
had an
browsed
awkward
through the mission
expression.
list.
There were quite a lot of
Avoided Han
missions on
Zhao's
it.
gaze.
The fourth round
and
of
pretended
prey
to stare at the
had not been
battlefield
completed.
projection with a
For
focused
some reason,
expression that said,
Thousand Shadows
"I'm
have been
analyzing the
silent
situation.
for 3 years.
Don't disturb
This
me."
made Han.
This is why I don't
Shao
want to
very
talk when the
cautious.
wind is blowing.
It felt like the
Han
calm
Shao
before the
sighed.
storm.
The
appearance
longer
of the
it
enemy's
brewed,
reinforcements
the scarier
caused
would
a
be.
chain reaction.
Han Shao did
On
not
the other
have the time
side,
to do Ghidorah's
streams of light
great-esque
flew
bloodline
over
mission.
from the desolate
He felt that it would be
universe belt.
very troublesome.
And a huge fleet
If he had the
stopped
time,
at the edge of the
he might as
battlefield.
well use it to develop the Black Star
Together with the
Corps.
reinforcements
The benefits
of the
would
bloodshed
definitely
land,
be much
they surrounded
greater than
Han
the mission
Zhao's
reward.
fleet.
Aroshia's
In ambush,
personal mission was
everyone's
still
expression
delayed.
changed.
But Fiden's hidden
It
mission
seems like this
choice
logistics transit
had been completed in the
station is a
past
trap.
3 years.
Han Shao raised his
reaching the
brows,
fourth result.
and his face was
Fiden
calm.
and
He was not
Chun
surprised
Xing
at all.
had gotten together.
The battle had gone
and they were
so
really sleeping with
smoothly.
each other.
And he had
The
long
mission
noticed the
reward was
problem.
not bad.
With so
It
many
gave him a
logistic
lot of
transit
experience
stations
and a
destroyed by
chance
him.
to obtain How could the bloodshed land not respond? Fu Ding and the model of the battleship of this Ambush fleet was making Han Xiao feel like he was the matchmaker. This was a fleet belonging to another. Isn't this a narcissistic over situation? The past 3 years, Han Xiao did organizations not dare imagine what the wedding ceremony would be like secretly allied with the bloodshed land. It would definitely be an eyesore. Han Xiao had already encountered more than Han Xiao's ambushes and traps, specifically he picked it up and saw that it was a message. He was already used to it. Every day that he was not assassinated over the job like something was and train a successor in advance. This time, the flagship received a video message from the ambush fleet. A man with metallic skin appeared on the outer orbit of his entire body a satellite that looked like a steel fortress,
and his expression was
murderous.
This was the
Black
current
Star
headquarters of the
fight.
Black Star Corps.
TSK.
It had been
This guy's
moved
here
away
again.
from the
Han
surface
Shao
of Planet
sighed.
Golden Gate.
This person was
and
also
turned
a
into
beyond
mobile
grade
satellite
AC.
fortress.
His name was Hardaway.
It was many times
and he was a
larger
battle
than
maniac.
before.
And
a year
many
ago,
more facilities.
he had barged
inside
during
the
a
satellite
battle
was the
and
main
specifically
body of the
wanted to
base,
spar with Han
which was a
Shao.
space station.
After
like
being
he really
defeated,
He
the
had
surface
escaped.
was filled with defense
However,
facilities.
Hardaway did
and
not
ports.
give up on the challenge.
After spending 3
After
years
escaping,
he took the initiative to form an alliance with the
into
bloodshed
satellite
land
fortresses
and used the
Although the
opportunity
cost was
of
high,
war to
he was now
barge
someone
again
who owned a
and
mine,
again.
so he did not
He treated
feel the
Han
pinch
Shao
at
as a
At
target
this
to
time,
train himself
in a large port
and kept on
inside the
fighting.
base.
Furthermore,
A tall,
when he
purple-haired
saw that
beauty
the situation was
pacing
not
back
good,
and forth.
he ran away.
She frequently
extremely
looked
quickly
in the direction
in
of
Han
the port,
Zhao's eyes
as if she was
he
waiting
was just
for
a
someone.
troublemaker. Her
Over
hands
the
were
past 3
clasped
years,
in front of her.
Han Zhao's
and her
list of
fingers were
connections
twisted
had become
together.
longer.
Her beautiful
And at the same
face
time,
was
his
full of
enemies had
nervousness
increased as
and
well.
anxiety. You guys take
It was
command.
Vilna.
I have
10
work
days
to do.
ago,
Han
she had
Zhao's
listened to
face was
Aesop's
calm.
orders.
He
and come to
casually
the
twisted
headquarters
his
of the
neck
Black Star
and
Corps
walked toward
to
the cabin
wait
door
for Han Shao.
leaving the people
Today
in the
was the
command room
day
with his back
that
as
Han
steady
Shao
as
would
an old
return.
dog. And Vilna had come to the port early to
Chapter
wait.
6,
Thinking that she
82.
was about to meet
The
the
hatch
person
opened,
who was said to
and
be
a
the
strong
person
suction
closest
force
to
is
beyond
suddenly
grade
stirred up
A
a
in
strong
the
wind,
Shatterstar ring, trying to
She
drag
could
him
not
out
help
of the
but
spaceship.
feel nervous.
Han Shao used
Before
his
this,
mechanical force
Vilna had
to
never seen
stimulate
Han
the
Shao in
compressed
person,
orb, nor had
and
she spoken to him
nanoparticles
personally.
flowed out like
She could
black
not help
sand
but have
all
all
over
kinds
his
of
body.
thoughts about this.
They quickly
mysterious
transformed
senior.
and
The
turned
Black
into
Star
a
Corps
strengthened
had
mountain
risen
ape
so
mechanical
quickly.
suit.
Maybe
He
Black
moved his
Star
limbs
was an ambitious
and jumped out of
schemer.
the spaceship.
She had heard that
Blue
many of the
flames
organizations
spurted
that
out
he
from the
defeated had
thrusters,
fallen
and he
into
turned
traps.
into a meteor.
Maybe he was a
and
schemer.
sped toward
Furthermore,
the rear.
he had a terrifying
expedition
battle
force
record
was
that
pincered from the
shocked
front
the
and
entire
back.
star field.
At the same time,
maybe he was a
they
domineering
exchanged
warrior.
fire with the
all kinds of
bloodshed
thoughts
land
flashed through
reinforcements
Vilna's
and the
mind like
enemy's
fireworks.
ambush forces.
She was very
The
nervous
deputy took over
and
the
rehearsed what
commander's
kind of
job
attitude
and told the
she should
rear
have when
team
meeting
to
Black
resist
Star.
the ambush
At this
forces
moment, while the front
streams
team
of light
continued to
approached from
attack the
afar
Stargate
and appeared
destroying the
outside
Stargate
skylight
was
of
still
the
the
port.
key to
An
winning
enormous
this battle.
Black Star
Han
fleet
Zhao's goal
appeared,
was to deal with the
slowly
high-level
decelerating
combatants
of the
and
ambush
entering the
forces.
entrance of the
After
satellite
failing
base.
assassination
The bottom of
attempts
the
time and
battleships
time
were
again,
embedded
he had
into the
already
tracks,
proven how difficult
entering the
he was to
base
deal with
and stopping.
If the
at
enemy
various
did
ports.
not have a
The
reliable
flagship,
strategy,
on the other hand,
they would not have
stopped
tried
at the
to
large
assassinate
dock
him.
where Vilna
He also
was.
wanted to see what
The
kind
hatch
of new
opened with a
assassination
whoosh,
package
and
the
the air
enemy had
pressure
prepared
pump
for him
let
this
out a
time,
sound of deflation.
and he was a little excited.
The foldable
The
gangway
galactic battlefield was
unfolded
filled with
automatically
crisscrossing
and hung
laser
on the edge of
cannons.
the dock. Han
Draped in
Shao
a black
moved
windbreaker,
and dodged while
Han
flying
Shao
at high
strode
speed,
out in large
easily
strides.
avoiding the ion
He casually
cannons.
looked around
Not long
before
after,
stepping onto the
he
alloy
arrived at the
floor of
edge
the
of
dock.
the ambush
The
forces.
crowd behind him
A
followed
stream
him
of
out
light
in a single
flew
file.
over from the enemy's
Vilna
formation.
calmed herself down
It was Hardaway
and jogged
who
over,
had challenged him.
standing in front
Hardaway
of Han Shao.
was an old opponent.
Your Excellency,
He did
Black
not like to
Star.
talk and
My
did
name
not
is
want to give
Vilna.
Han Shao time to release the mech army.
I'm a new officer.
The
of
moment he
Floating
saw
Dragon.
Han Shao,
Aesop
he
asked
did
me to
not
look
waste
for you.
any time.
Han Shao
and charged
paused
forward with the
and
iron
lowered his
head
head
hammer
to
like
look
a
at
mini
Vilna.
meteorite.
His eyes were deep,
Han Shao was
as if he
not
was
afraid of a
sizing her
sudden
up.
attack.
Vilna's
His
heart
hands
jumped
turned
to
into
her throat.
cannon barrels.
She swallowed.
And blue psionic
Han
cannons
Shao didn't say
shot out
anything.
toward Hardaway.
Her brain
Hardaway did
short-circuited,
not dodge
and she
at
didn't
all
know how to
and
answer.
allowed the
She
psionic
felt
cannons
silent
to
and
explode
stared
on
at
each
each
other.
other.
He was
After
not
a
injured at
while,
all. Han
After
Shao
fighting
smiled
many
and said,
times,
Aesop
Han
has
Shao
already
understood
told me.
Hardaway's
He asked me to help you
abilities very
build
well.
a second field
He did not want to
team.
injure him.
Don't worry,
but only wanted
I'll
to
help
slow
you.
down Hardaway's
As he spoke,
charging speed.
Han Shao reached
Making
out
use of
and
this short
squeezed
time,
Vilna's slender
he activated
shoulders.
the army boxes
Since you've joined
from
Floating
afar.
Dragon,
The
space
space
around
job.
him rippled.
I have high hopes
and the
for you.
army boxes
Vilna's
jumped
face
over
blushed
one after
and
another.
her tense body
The door of the
relaxed a
crate
little.
opened.
Han
and
Zhao's
countless
friendly attitude
compressed
made her
orbs
less
rapidly
nervous.
expanded into
It
a
seems like
mechanical
Black Star
form,
is a very
filling up
easy
the
person
small
to get along
area
with.
almost
I really don't
instantly.
understand
The
why
densely
Jin
packed
always
mech legion
emphasized
had
that
reached
Black
a scale
Star is a rude,
3 million.
unsociable,
In the past 3
heinous
years, the
Astra
Black
Star.
Star Corps had earned
Follow
a lot.
me.
Han Shao
snapped snapped his fingers, turned around, strengthen and expand. The Vilna came back to her senses and hurriedly followed. Even the most common cannon passing through many corridors, the others said high-grade alloy materials. Only Han Shao armor and defense were much higher than 3 years ago. The two of them walked in silence. The increase in base stats made the various bonuses suddenly even more without turning his head. Through the many more missions. What do you think Han Shao had earned a large amount of amethyst she thought for a while, contribution stare at Han Zhao's and had exchanged them for more cutting-edge knowledges. She's one of them gentle. Was the controllable annihilation weapon. It's my honor to work for her. Annihilation weapons. Does she know that your conventional weapons is to build a second field team? Grade higher she should know. Energy weapons. Vilna thought for a while because it was a technological innovation. Ames did not ask about its her power job. Was much so she higher added than normal. Aesop must have told her. Furthermore, then what was her attitude? It required the cutting-edge knowledge. Vilna thought hard and carefully as a prerequisite. Said, Basically,
didn't have any special
only
reaction.
psionic energy
Han Xiao
or
touched his chin
antimatter
and
energy
did not say anything.
could be used to create
He knew that looking for a
annihilation
successor
weapons.
was most
With
likely
these two
Aesop's
cutting-edge
idea.
knowledges,
Ames would
Han
not care
Xiao
about
had
this
already
kind of
changed
thing, but he
most
did
of the
not
weapons
reject
of his
it.
mechanical
Floating
soldiers
Dragon had
to annihilation
always given him a
weapons.
lot of help.
Together with
And he also
legendary
wanted
battle
to
techniques
repay
and
Floating
other
Dragon
talents,
and leave
their
something
attack
behind.
power had increased
In order to seek better
significantly.
development,
In the
he chose
past
to part
3
on
years,
good terms.
Han Xiao
so there was
had
no
yet to
need for him
complete
to
his
say
class
goodbye.
advancement mission.
He did plan
If
to
it were
train
any other
Vilna,
class,
and
his strength
paved the
would
way
not
for
have
her,
increased by
using
much.
these 7 years
However,
to complete the
the
job
advantage of the
transfer.
mechanic class
Furthermore,
was that as long
Vilna
as
was
he
someone
had
he was
money
familiar
to
with
burn,
in his previous
even
life.
if his strength
Without
reached
him,
a bottleneck,
Vilna
he could
would have
still
been the real
steadily
field team
increase
officer
his
of
strength.
Floating Dragon. Han
In
Xiao
the
had not
end,
stopped
she
building
would have
his back
died with
legion
Floating
in the
Dragon.
past 3 years.
All kinds of memories
He realized
flashed
that
through
other
his
than
mind,
having money,
and the office
he had
was
another
already in
huge
front of him.
advantage.
Han
which
Xiao
was that
put
he
away
had
his
far more
thoughts,
time than the players.
walked into the room with
the
Vilna,
mechanic class
and
happened to
called
be a
Reynolds,
class that
Toulouse,
needed time
and
to
Sylvia.
build
Let me
all
introduce
kinds of
you.
equipment.
This
As
is
long as he
Vilna,
had money,
a new
and
officer
liver.
of Floating Dragon.
Increasing his
She's
strength
preparing
would
to
be
build a
as
second
easy
field
as
team.
drinking water.
So she came to ask for
Among
my
the
help.
5 super
Help her
classes,
recruit people.
only
and
the mage
don't
class
worry
could
about
be
the
compared
cost.
to the mechanic class in this aspect.
Also,
with Han
choose 10
Xiao's
financial
current
groups from our
strength,
partners
any normal
and
calamity
persuade them
grade
to
super that
invest
came would
in a
basically
new
be
floating
killed.
dragon field
After the
team
repeated
in my
assassination
name.
attempts,
You have to value this
the
work
various
and
organizations
help her build
in
a
the Shattered
field
Star
team
Ring
according to
had
her
reached a
ideas.
consensus. Try your
Those
best
organizations
to provide
that
support.
secretly
Han
plan
Xiao said
assassinations would
he was
not
prepared to
easily
use the
send
current
their high-level
resources
combatants
and
to their
influence
deaths.
of the Black Star
Therefore,
Corps
to
the
train a
only
new
enemy
team
that Han
for
Xiao was
Floating Dragon
facing now
without
was
asking
Hardaway.
for anything
This
in
guy was a
return.
beyond grade
Understood.
A seed and
Reynolds
did not
nodded
belong to
solemnly.
the category
He then
of
shook
normal
Vilna's
calamity
hand
grades
and said with a
Furthermore,
deep voice,
his ability
"Tell
was
me
the
your
type
request later.
that gave Han
I'll try my best to
Xiao a
fulfill
headache.
it." Hardaway
okay.
was an Esper,
Vilna still had
and his
his
ability
ability from her
was
shock.
body hardening.
Han Xiao's help
This was a
beyond her
common
imagination.
Esper ability
He gave
that
her
could be
money
found on the
and
streets.
manpower.
However,
all she had to do was
he was
talk,
extremely
and
talented
she did not have to
and had
worry about
developed
anything
this
else.
Esper ability.
Everything was taken
to an
care of by
abnormal
the
degree.
Black Star Corps.
His defense
He's too
was
rich,
extremely shocking.
Vilna was
and he had
dumbfounded,
many molding
and a
talents.
light blush
He was a
appeared on her
boss-level
cheeks.
character.
She overturned
Firstly,
the negative image
Hardaway
that
had the
Jenny
molding
had instilled
talent
in her
low
and
damage
built a new
immunity.
image of
He was a
Han
tank,
Xiao in her heart.
and as long as the attack
Friendly,
did not
steady,
exceed a certain
reliable,
standard value,
rich,
the
strong,
attack would
and
deal
handsome.
0 damage.
This kind of senior is awesome.
This
Why is
standard value
Jenny
depended on
always
his line
on
defense.
Vilna was
And his
annoyed.
Esper ability
No wonder he
was
could
body
build
hardening,
such a
which
huge
greatly
foundation
increased
in
his
just 10
defense.
years.
Therefore,
Although
Vilna
focus
did
fire
not want
tactics
to
were
admit it.
almost useless
After a
against
short
them.
time together,
The second thing that
Han
gave
Xiao
Han
gave her
Xiao
the
a
feeling
headache
that he
was
was
that
much more
Hardaway
reliable
also
than
had the
Ames.
molding talent,
Then
true
go do your
damage
work.
immunity. Han
Beyond
Xiao waved his
grade,
hand. ACs
Reynolds
were all
nodded and
extremely
turned to the
talented
others.
and were
Okay,
heroes among
wait for me
bosses.
outside.
For a
I have
super
something to
tank
talk
like
to His
Hardaway,
Excellency
it was
Black
not
Star
strange
alone.
for him to have
Han
this
Xiao was a
talent.
bit surprised.
This made legendary
at Reynolds'
battle
face
techniques
and
and
saw
saw
that he had
something
something
on
on
his
his
mind. The focus
Han
fire
Xiao
effect
thought
was
for a
poor,
while
and
true
nodded to the
damage
others,
was ineffective,
signaling them.
Han
to
Xiao's
leave
2 trump
first.
cards could not
Seeing
threaten
this,
Hardaway.
The others
so he
walked
could
out
only
with Vilna,
slowly grind him down.
leaving only Han
Every time he
Xiao
fought with
and
Hardaway,
Reynolds in the room. It was a
what do you wanna
process
talk to
of
me
2
about?
huge
Han
lumps
Xiao
of meat
narrowed his
rubbing
eyes
against
and
each
stared
other.
at Reynolds.
Neither of
Hundreds
them
of thoughts
could do anything
ran
to the other
through his mind.
Every time Han
Actually,
Xiao defeated
I didn't want to
Hardaway,
mention this.
he did not
because
kill
no
him.
one can
It was
help
not
me.
that he did not want
But now
to,
he can
but
help
that he
me.
really
I have something
could
to ask
not
of you.
kill this guy.
Reynolds said
Before
with a
Hardaway
serious
escaped.
face and a
On the other
sincere
hand,
tone.
Han
Hardaway
Xiao's eyes
seemed to
lit
be
up.
enjoying the beatings
He smelled the scent
and did
of a
not
mission.
tire of
In
challenging
the past
him.
few years,
A year ago,
he had been trying to
Hadavi
trigger a
had
mission
suddenly
from
come to
Reynolds,
find him for a
but he had
spar.
never succeeded.
Han Xiao had
he thought
no
that this
enmity
person
with him.
did not
So
have
he
a
felt
mission,
that this must be
but
the
now,
result of his enemy
Reynolds had
adding
taken the
fuel to the
initiative
fire,
to ask.
He
He
finally
finally understood
understood
how to fight
expectations.
poison with poison. Aren't you meat? I'll find someone even fatter to disgust
Chapter
you.
6,
In the
86.
past, it was the
Reynolds
bloodshed
had
land
very
who
low
wanted to
requirements.
vomit every time
Other than
they saw
finding
him.
Han Xiao
Now,
to learn
it
about
was Han
blueprints.
Xiao who wanted to vomit
He was like an invisible
every time
person
he saw
the rest
Hardaway.
of the time.
Without
Ever since he
any
joined
other
the army, enemy calamity.
He had always
grade
kept a
supers.
low
He only
profile.
had one opponent.
His business
There were
ability
no other
was
constraints.
as strict and
a portion of the
reliable
Mech
as his
Legion
personality.
fought with
He
Hardaway
had never caused
according
any
to the set
trouble
battle mode.
and managed the
These little
logistics of the
cuties
army
were
well.
more than enough.
This was
to
the first
stall him.
time he had asked
Han
Han
Xiao
Xiao
was
for
only
help.
responsible
Seeing
for
Reynolds'
providing the
troubled
mechanical
look,
force
Han
bonuses.
Xiao understood.
He did not want to fight.
Reynolds
with
had only
Hardaway at
asked
all.
for his help now.
It was a waste
because
of
this
energy.
matter was
At the
very
same time,
difficult.
Han
Reynolds
Xiao
had
turned
only
around
come to learn
and
at the
controlled
beginning
another portion
not to
of the
ask
Mech
for help.
Legion to attack
However,
the surrounding
now
enemy
that Han
fleet.
Xiao had made
The
a name
dense
for
dark
himself
blue
in the entire
annihilation
Starfield,
rays pierced
Reynolds
through
saw
the
hope
shields of the spaceships,
and felt that he had the
leaving
ability to
strange
help.
colored
Han
spots
Xiao
around
felt
the
that his
holes
guess
of
was
shields.
not far from the
The
truth.
spaceships
So
lost
he
their
secretly
shields
braced
one
himself.
after another.
Tell me
and their
about the
outer armor
situation
was torn
first.
apart.
He did
Countless
not
metal
agree
fragments
immediately
floated
and decided
in the
to
air.
listen to the mission
Turbulent
details
fire
first.
snakes spewed out
thought
from
for
the
a
holes
while
in the spaceships,
before speaking
flowing into the
slowly.
vacuum,
As you know,
with the airflow
I'm from the Hyde star
and
system.
turning into
I'm sure you
twisting
know the
fire
situation
dragons.
of that star system.
They lasted for an instant
Shao
before
nodded.
they ran
The
out of
Heidegger star
oxygen
system
and were
was an
extinguished.
ownerless star
The
system
energy
that
furnace
did not
lost
have a
its
local
balance,
civilization
and the
in charge.
spaceships
It was connected
expanded
to
from the
6
inside.
star system
Dazzling
civilizations,
flames
including
tore
Ghidorah.
through the hull of the
All of these
spaceships,
civilizations
and
had violent
violent a large
explosions
number of
occurred.
troops.
The
in the Heidegger
spaceships
star
turned into
system,
fireworks,
dividing
in
up
the
this
universe,
ownerless star
also
system,
disappearing
and continuously
in the blink of an
expanding.
eye.
They
With
had
the
been at
current
odds with
strength
each
of
other
the
for
Mech
many
Legion,
years.
it was not a
causing the
problem
Heidegger
for
star
them
system
to participate
become a
in
chaotic
galactic war.
land of dispute.
I was born in
They
a small
gradually
place
helped their
called
own
Cyrus
fleet
in the area
stabilize the
occupied by the
situation.
Hutt civilization.
After fighting for half a
Cyrus
day,
was
the
controlled
enemy
by a
fleet was
low-level
already
star
showing
system
signs of
civilization.
weakening, with
The
6
reinforcements
ruling
of the
planets.
bloodshed land,
This civilization's
only
level
struggle
was
at
between a
death's door.
planetary
It
civilization
was only a matter
and
of
a star
time
system
before the
civilization.
Stargate was destroyed.
This civilization
Hardaway
was divided
also
into
seemed to have
several
thoughts of retreating.
regimes that
He started to
competed with
shake
each
off
other.
the entanglement
Because
of
Hyde
the
was
Mech
always
Legion
at war
and started
the
to
political
retreat.
situation on
However,
Cyrus
he did
had
not
always
run in the
been
direction of
very
the ambushed
unstable,
troops,
but
Reynolds
directly
said
charged
slowly.
into the
Leonard
formation
said
of Han
slowly,
Zhao's fleet.
My parents
wanting to
ran a
pass
mechanical
through
research
and escape
company,
through the
but they
Stargate
went bankrupt
before
later.
Han Zhao's
When I was
fleet
6 years
completely
old,
destroyed
they
the
died in a
bloodshed
riot
land's
caused by a
defense line.
political
You're running?
protest
Han
inside
Zhao's
the
eyes
mechanical
flickered.
suit helmet. This was the first
Han
time
Zhao
Reynolds
had
raised
told
his
the story.
eyebrows in surprise.
Normally,
he had
he
thought
would
that
not
there would be
talk
some
about his
new
past
tricks in this
I have
assassination.
a sister who is 9
but he did not
years older
expect
than
it to
me.
be such
Her
a
name
bluff.
is Rosalind.
Even the previous few
After my parents
assassinations
died,
were much
I
more
lived with her
powerful
for
than
3
this one.
years.
It's
When I
definitely
was 9
not
years
that
old,
simple.
she
I
sent
wonder
me
what
on
he's
a
up to.
long-distance interstellar
Han Zhao
flight,
narrowed his eyes,
sent me away
thought
from
about
planet
it,
Cyrus,
and turned around to
and
chase
abandoned
after
me.
Hardaway.
When I left my
His fleet
hometown,
was in
I was
Hardaway's
still a child.
path. I didn't
And
know
Han
anything,
Zhao was
and
not
no one
gonna
took
sit
care of
back
me.
and
I
watch him
wandered the
charge in his
galaxy
fleet.
and spent the
If
most
Hardaway
difficult
wanted to do
childhood
something,
wandering around.
the others would not
Only
be able
then
to
did I
stop him.
gradually
The two
gain
of them
enough
chased,
strength
and
to
Han
protect myself.
Zhao gradually
Later,
closed the
I tried to go
distance
back to
between
find
them.
Rosalind.
Behind him,
and only then
millions
did I
of
know what she had
mechanical
done.
soldiers followed
Leonard
like
shook his head.
millions of meteors, majestic.
After I
Han
left,
Zhao finally
she
caught
showed her
up
awakened
to Hardaway
ability.
when they arrived.
The official
at the front
statement,
seeing
is
that
she could
Hardaway
bewitch
had
people
already
and
passed through
subtly
his fleet,
change people's
he stopped
perception of the world,
and did not plan
But in the
to
beginning,
continue the chase.
no one knew about
This
her
time,
ability. Hardaway
she
did
used
not
this
continue
ability
to run.
to
He
gather
suddenly turned
countless
around
believers
and charged toward
and
Han
built
Zhao,
a new religion.
trying to break through the
a new
fierce focus
ideology
fire.
and
This is a
culture
little
was
strange.
born in her hands.
Han Zhao became
This ability
alert
helped her
and was about to
complete
dodge
the
when
missionary
mechanical suit's
process
radar
of normal
suddenly
religion
rang,
in just a
showing
few
30
years.
high energy
More
reaction
and more
sources.
people became her
30
believers.
grade.
A
She
super
became the
suddenly
pope of the new
appeared in the
religion
surrounding
in the
bloodshed
Cyrus
lands
civilization
reinforcement
and was
fleet
loved
and charged toward Han
worshipped by
Zhao.
countless people.
Han Zhao even
Even
saw
the high-ranking
Rothers and
officials
other
of various
various
governments
governments
had
they had
many
followed the
believers.
reinforcement fleet
She controlled
through the Stargate
almost
and
half
had not
of the
attacked
Cyrus
the few
civilization
calamity
in a
grade
religious
supers
way.
of the Black Star.
She held a high position.
They had been waiting
above countless
patiently
people
for this
However,
opportunity.
The authorities
The
felt that
attacks
she
of
was
the
a 30
threat to their
calamity
rule.
grade supers
So they kept
came
searching
from
for
all
clues.
directions.
In the
bringing
end,
her
immense
ability
pressure.
was discovered.
Han Zhao
and she became
hurriedly
the most
controlled
dangerous
the Mech
careerist
Legion
in
in
the
the
eyes
eyes
of the
But
authorities.
Hardaway
She
found an opening.
The Pope,
This
was
iron-headed
arrested,
brat,
and the
smash
smash
she
threw
founded
all the
was
mechanical
destroyed.
soldiers in his way.
Although her
and
ability
collided
can
with Han
rewrite
Zhao.
people's
Han
subconscious
Zhao's
thoughts on a
waist
large
tightened,
scale,
and he
can't
realized that
brainwash,
Hardaway's
make
hands
people
were
crazy
tightly wrapped
or
around
control
his body,
people's minds.
unable to break
So,
free.
although
Hardaway
society
carried
was
him
shocked
and
no one
charged
stood
toward
up
the
for her.
Stargate.
No one
The
likes
30
their
calamity
thoughts to be
grade
twisted by
supers
others.
ignored
Her
the
reputation
harassment of the Mech
fell
Legion
to rock
and
bottom,
bombarded
and
Hardaway.
she became a
with
sinner
attacks one
despised
after
by
another. Countless
madly
people.
increasing
Those
his
governments
speed.
tried Rosalind and
The
determined
surrounding
that she
bloodshed
was
land
guilty of
fleets
crimes
gave
against
up all
civilization and
attacks
race.
and
They
desperately
decided to
defended
detain
against
her
the attacks of
indefinitely.
Han Zhao's
However,
fleet.
their true
Desperately
intentions were
protecting
soon
the Stargate.
exposed.
Seeing
In their
this,
eyes,
Han Zhao's
Rosalind's
brain
ability
worked quickly
was an
and
excellent
he
tool that
immediately
could help them
understood the
rule.
other
Who
party's
would detain
entire
Rosalind
plan.
became
This
a
is
problem.
for Hardaway
Every
to
government
pretend
wanted to
ambush
seize her
me
and force
use
me to
her
fight
ability ability and then consolidate their rule, leading me near the Stargate. They were
other
not willing to
dozens
let
of
anyone
Calamity
else have
grade
this tool.
supers
Secretly
Leonard
closed his
returned
eyes,
to the soul
cluster
cluster
from the
three
border
border
star
star systems
and waited for orders
name,
with the reinforcements.
she was imprisoned,
The Bloodshed
but in
Land
fact,
knows that I will
she
attack
disappeared
the
from the
last
public eye
logistics
after the
transit
public trial.
station. So
These
this is a
governments
trap
sent
that
agents
deliberately
and
spies
spies
to
Their
secretly
goal
snatch
is to
her.
let these
There were
Calamity
even some
grade
rebels with
supers
ulterior
follow the
motives
reinforcements
who joined
to this
battle.
battlefield.
She became a
through the
tool
Stargate.
that kept
Their
changing
goal
hands.
is not to kill me,
Han
but
Shao
to help
listened for a long
Hardaway
time
control me
and could not help
send me
but
into
ask.
the Stargate.
So on the other
You want me
side of
to
the
rescue
Stargate
her
was
from
the
this
Soul
civilization?
Cluster.
You're
which was
already
the
at Calamity
headquarters of the
grade.
Clint
You
Kingdom
can do it yourself,
and
right?
Bloodshed Land.
No, I get
She's
it.
not on
You want to
Cyrus
lure me
anymore.
into your territory.
Leonard shook his head.
This way,
The Hutt
I will be
civilization
isolated
discovered
and
her
helpless,
and took her
and
away
you can slowly
because of
torture
her
me.
ability.
Even if you can't
She's already
kill
a
me,
prisoner
you
of
can
a star
easily
system
capture me alive.
civilization.
Han Xiao
understood.
felt a headache.
No wonder
These
Leonard
little
had asked
bastards
for help.
really have
It turned out that
imagination.
Rosalind
Are
had
they trying to
become a
elope with
key
me?
prisoner of the
Hardaway's
star
physique
system
could
civilization.
easily
It would
withstand
be
the
difficult to
continuous
rescue her
bombardment.
now, and his
To a
flying
star
speed
system
became
civilization
faster.
and
Although
faster.
calamity grades
The bloodshed
were rare,
land
they were not
battleships
people
along
that
the
they
way
had to give
opened a
face
path
to.
for him.
And the blue vortex in the center
With
of the
Rosalind's
Stargate
importance,
expanded
the
rapidly,
Hutt civilization
and Han
would
Zhao's
not
vision,
easily
getting
hand her
closer
over.
and closer.
Even if they went to break
Seeing
her
that
out,
the strategy
Leonard
was
would
about
not
to
be able to
succeed,
defeat
Hardaway
the high-level
could not help
combatants of
but
the
send a
star
voice
system
message to
civilization.
Han Xiao.
He could not
who was
save his
right in
sister
front of him.
alone.
When we reached the
Therefore,
soul
he must have
cluster,
taken a fancy
let's
to
have
my
a good
current
fight
influence.
again. By the
Han
way,
Xiao thought,
do you want me to ask
I know
them
this
to
is
bring your
very
Mech Legion
abrupt,
over as well?
but there's nothing
That
I
way,
can do
we can have a
about
good
Rosalind's
fight.
situation.
Hardaway's
I hope
tone
he can
was
save
sincere.
her. Han
Leonard
Zhao's
bowed
mouth twitched.
deeply.
You're quite
Han Xiao stroked his
sincere.
chin. Since
Your
you like to
sister
fight with me
seems to be an
so
ambitious
much,
person.
let go of
I
me
feel
if you
that
have
she
the guts.
brought this upon
As
herself.
long as you don't run away,
Psychics could
I'll
also
fight with
change
you
the
until
thoughts of
you're
others
satisfied.
to a certain extent.
No,
Fighting
but the
is
range
one
and
thing.
efficiency
I don't
were
want to
obviously
die.
far inferior
Hardaway shook his head,
to Rosalind's
increased the
as for
strength of his
ability.
arms.
It was
and
perfect for
tightly
preaching,
hugged Han Zhao's
and it was the
waist,
type that the arcane
stubbornly
church
flying
liked
with
the
Han
most.
Xiao.
Maybe she
You
really
really
is
think
an
highly
ambitious
of me.
person.
Han
I won't
Xiao
defend her
was
actions.
speechless.
Although
To
she
be
abandoned
honest,
me back then,
he did not have
and my
any grudges
relationship with
against
her
Hardaway.
is very faint.
Hardaway was not
She's still my
interested in the
family.
secret war at all.
She has already
and
paid the
only
price.
wanted to find him to fight.
I don't want to see her
As
suffer.
the saying went,
Han
no
Xiao was
discord,
surprised.
no
He had
concord.
always thought that
The two
Leonard's
of them had
heart
clashed
was made
so
of
many
machinery.
times.
And
This
they
was
were
one of the
both
rare
beyond
times that
grade
Leonard
ACs.
showed his emotions.
Sometimes they would
After a
even
moment
chat
of silence,
while fighting.
Han Xiao slowly said,
I can help, but
Chapter
this isn't that
683.
simple. Even I might
At
not
the
be able
same
to get
time,
the Hutt
in
civilization
a remote
to hand
command
her
room
over
of
with
the
just
Bloodshed
one
Land
sentence.
headquarters on
Rosalind
planet Ember.
did break the law.
Chief Staff Officer
and this is not a
Joad
reasonable
and a group of
request.
deputies were
They can
watching
totally
the
not
situation
give me
through a
face.
remote video
Leonard
call.
nodded and said
It seems like we have a
seriously,
chance to succeed
"Understand.
this time.
You don't owe me anything.
One of the deputies
I'll continue to work
swallowed.
for you.
Don't
and
relax.
repay this debt.
Black Star has
That's
too many
right,
tricks
brother.
up his sleeve.
Han Zhao's eyes
Before
lit
he
up,
enters the
and he
Stargate,
smiled.
No one can
If
let
that's the
down their
case,
guard.
I'll try my best.
Joe's tone was grave.
This time,
This kidnapping
a notification
operation
popped
was his
up on the
idea.
interface.
In the past
You have
3
triggered the
years,
mission.
Black Star had
Reformer.
fought with the frontline
Mission
troops of the
introduction.
Bloodshed Land.
You agreed to
hundreds of
Leonard's
times.
request.
He had
and
thought
decided
of
to
many
save
methods,
Rosalind from the
but
Hutt
all of them had been
civilization.
resolved by
Mission
Han Xiao.
requirements. This
Save
strong
Rosalind.
enemy was both
Reward.
strong and
18
difficult
million
to kill.
experience.
He was
plus
almost
30 Leonard
invincible at the
favorability,
calamity
plus
grade
80
level,
Rosalind
which gave him a
favorability.
headache.
Blank character
However,
summon card.
Joad was not
Leonard
discouraged.
X1 Han
Instead,
Xiao looked at it.
he followed the
and a look
tyrant's
of surprise
instructions and
flashed
treated
across his
dealing
eyes.
with Black Star
The mission
as a
itself
task.
did not
Coincidentally,
seem too difficult.
Black Star
but
had
the
been leading a
prerequisites
team
to
trigger it
eliminate
were
the
very
logistics
harsh.
transit
It
stations
seemed to require a
in the
good
desolate
relationship
universe
with Leonard
for the
and a
past
high
half
level of
year.
influence.
Joad had an
Only
idea
then would Leonard
and
take
decide
the
to set up
initiative
this trap
to
to
ask
try
for
and
help.
kidnap Black
The
Star
experience
to the Soul
reward
Cluster
was rather
as long as they
ordinary for a
succeeded.
mission of this level.
Even if they could not
Increasing
kill
the
Black Star,
favorability of
they
two
would be able to
characters
control him.
was also
The Soul Star
quite
Cluster was
normal.
their headquarters.
The reward
and
that
Black
surprised
Star
him
did
the
not
most
have
was
any
Leonard's
helpers.
character
He was
summon card.
alone and
A
had
blank
nowhere
character
to run.
summon card
Once
meant
Black
that he
Star
could choose
fell into
one
their
of
hands,
Leonard's abilities.
Clint would
as
be
an
more
effect.
than happy to
Han
use
Xiao had
all
obtained
kinds
a
of methods
blank
to
character
control
summon
Black
card
Star.
before.
Purple
At that
Crystal
time,
would lose a
he had
beyond
randomly
grade
obtained
AC
one of
with
Aim's
a bright
abilities
future,
and killed
and the
a
potential
Dark
stock
Star
they had
calamity
invested
grade.
in would become Clint's people. It did not
Of
matter
all Leonard's
who came
abilities,
first.
The most
This
valuable
way,
one
he would
was
not
the
need
powerful
his Excellency
mechanic
Tyrant's
molding
help to
talent.
get rid
Perfect
of a rising
mechanical
star,
sense.
the Shattered Star.
Although there was a
he
limit
would
to the
feel a
number of
sense of
times
accomplishment,
he could use a character
and his
summon
Excellency
card.
Tyrant
It was
would
better than
definitely
nothing.
value him more.
Most of the time,
Of course,
only combat
all of this
missions
was
with the
based on
drawer
the
reward
premise
had a
that he could
chance of
kidnap
obtaining
Black
other
Star.
people's molding
Joad
talents.
stared at Han
Other than
Xiao on
character
screen,
summon cards,
ready to
the
give
players would
orders to the
definitely
calamity
not be
grades
able to
present
obtain
at
molding
any time.
talents.
In his
Han
eyes,
Xiao had the
Han
NPC
Xiao was
template,
already a boss.
so the draw range
existence.
included
His current
molding talents.
attitude coincidentally
However,
coincided
the players
with
did not.
the attitude.
So there would
of the
not be
players
missions
when
that
they were
directly
fighting
rewarded
boss-like.
molding talents.
He was prepared to deal with Han
Xiao's
Xiao's
not
next
disappointed.
stage.
This was a
at any
matter of
time.
luck.
In the
If he wanted
battlefield
to
near
near the Stargate. From the 30 Calamity grade supers, he would probably have to think of another to Han Shao,
a character summoned
carried by Hardaway to the
It happens to be useful recently.
Only a few seconds
Han
had
Shao
passed.
thought to
The
himself.
attacks of Rothers,
The class
and the other
advancement
30
mission
Calamity
required
grades
him
attacked
to create a
Hardaway's
piece
back
of
time
level
and time
180
increasing
legacy
his speed.
orange equipment.
He was getting closer
With his current
and
machinery
closer to
affinity,
Stargate.
it would be a
Han
little
Shao
difficult
circulated
to
his
create
energy
orange equipment
throughout his
He would have
body.
to find a way to
Every
increase
cell in
his
his
crafting
body
ability.
was like a reactor
However,
operating
with the
at full
effect of
power,
perfect
spewing
mechanical
out
sense,
surging energy
he would be
that
able to
turned
complete it in
icy
one go,
cold void energy,
saving
that
him
quickly
a lot of
spread
trouble.
throughout
Putting
his
away
limbs
his
and bones.
thoughts, Han Shao returned to
It was
the
as if his
topic at
body
hand.
was immersed
I'll move out in
icy
2 days
water.
and make
The
a trip
void
to the
energy
Hutt
burned
civilization.
fiercely on
Tell
the
me
surface
everything
of
you
his
know.
body.
By the way,
turning
what does your
into a
sister look
silver
like?
gray flame.
I haven't seen
Inside
her
the
for many
mechanical
years.
suit helmet.
However,
The whites of
when
Han
she was still
Zhao's
the Pope,
eyes were dyed
she left
into
behind
the
many
color of
pictures.
obsidian. I saved them. Pupils became the size. Leonard took out his communicator. He instantly entered the void mold and projected them in the air. And his attributes. It was a woman wearing a luxurious red and the void attribute of his long hair was also into a bun. And Hardaway's hands beautiful suddenly hugged nothing. She had bright eyes. Han Xiao disappeared without a trace, and her facial features were similar to Leonard's. Black Star might appear nearby at any time, and her temperament was secret graceful. Mages who have in the picture space magic. She seemed to be giving a religious speech. His dimension, and below her were all devout. The moment he appears, were listening. Restrict his movements. Han Xiao took a look. Jode immediately ordered in the remote. He took another look and then stared at the already face in the picture. After being together for more than 3 years, noticing Han Xiao's gaze very well. Leonard, when Jode was setting up the plan, he had already considered Han Xiao came back to his senses, covered his mouth. Although he did not know that Han Xiao's teleportation ability, your sister is quite advanced void travel. This time, he had seen it was Leonard's turn to have a weird after asking various supers. In reality, he roughly understood the theory behind it. Han Xiao understood how to restrict some of Han Xiao's abilities. Just met today among the 30 calamity familiar supers lying in ambush. He did not expect Jode had specially arranged a few secret mages who practice space magic. These people had already prepared spell models. Chapter 687. The Hutt civilization was located in other casting tools in their hands, and the Black Star Corps had a branch there. They could sense 3 years ago, fluctuations the Hutt civilization had set up a diplomatic team to deal with void dimension and the real dimension. The person in charge of the magic light was an elite from the Ministry of Foreign Fluctuation called Wall. And the traces of the Black Star Corps had an office in the void dimension were immediately outlined near a resource plant. It was the office area. It was like a conspicuous mark. Wallman and his team members usually stayed there to monitor the mining without hesitation. Resource planet. They threw all the high-level space and imprisonment spells they had prepared. It was a leisurely day, as usual. All kinds of magic at the office early in the morning. The next moment, gracefully Han Xiao's figure left the void. He sat down at his seat and admired the starry sky. All kinds of high-level space, imprisonment spells. He took out a book from his bag and opened it. There was almost no time. This was a literary book written. However, in the Han Xiao did not need. He decided to finish the 8th chapter to the 11th chapter today. He knew that he would definitely be the whole morning. This was not the first decided on his reading. As the saying went, he would leave the rest afraid of being famous. If he was in a good mood, he would consider reading one more chapter. His fame had in the interstellar era, and every battle would let unnecessary manufacturing and transportation costs. The moment he appeared, all entertainment and art books were electronic versions. His hands physical books had become collectibles, and as if space was only a small number of people who wanted to live a refined, without any hesitation, life, he directly initiative void physical books. Visible distortion in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the cosmic space, and a member of the upper class of society. Wallman strictly demanded that he live a refined life. He took out a can of green powder, scooped 2 spoonfuls, and poured it into a crystal cup. He then brewed it with cold water. The green powder in the cup dissolved in the cold water and turned into a thick, blue liquid. It shone with a fluorescent light, as if there were stars rising and falling in it. It was very beautiful. It was a refreshing drink made from a plant called the frost bean, which was ground into powder and brewed with cold water. It was a special drink that the Hutts liked. It was cold and sweet. Wallman's frostbean powder was naturally not a factory product, but a hand-ground premium product. Wallman returned to his seat with the crystal cup and took a sip of the green drink. He then picked up the book on the table and adjusted the angle between his seat and the window to form a 45-degree angle. It was as if he had completed some kind of ritual. Only then did he start reading with satisfaction. He did not mind being transferred to this leisurely position, but he was not satisfied with his current job. Wallman preferred to be active in the political and diplomatic arena between civilizations and display his diplomatic charm in an elegant manner. That was the style of an elite. The Black Star Corps, on the other hand, was just an armed force. Even though they were powerful, they were just a bunch of uncultured, boorish mercenaries. Wallman did not like to deal with the Black Star Corps. In his opinion, it was an insult to himself and a waste of his talent. At this time, a team member rushed into the room and yelled, "Captain, the Black Star Corps just sent a notice. Their leader, Black Star, will be coming to the Skywalker star system in 7 days to visit the Hutt civilization. Here are the details. What's Black Star's motive for coming here personally?" Wallman was alarmed. Ever since he took office, he had only settled trivial matters. This was the first diplomatic matter that was slightly more important. After taking the document and reading it carefully, Wallman said in surprise, He wants to see Rosalind? Who's Rosalind? Han Xiao had written down his goal to inform the Hut civilization in advance. If it was just a meeting with his position, the Hut civilization should not reject him. Wallman immediately contacted the upper echelons. After a 10-minute call, he hung up and let out a sigh of relief. The upper echelons were not going to show up personally. They wanted him to be in charge of welcoming Black Star. 7 days later, Han Xiao arrived at the Skywalker star system in a spaceship and landed at a military port of the Hut civilization's ruling planet. The Hut civilization had already received a notice and cleared the port. Wallman and the others were already waiting at the port. The hatch opened, and Han Xiao walked out with Reynolds. Wallman tidied his clothes, walked over with an elegant smile, and reached out his hand to shake Han Xiao's hand. "Your Excellency Black Star, I'm Wallman from the diplomatic team. I welcome you on behalf of the Hut civilization." "Yo, nice to meet you." Han Xiao shook hands with him. "After hearing about your arrival, the upper echelons wanted to accompany you personally. Unfortunately, your arrival was too sudden and they couldn't spare any time. Therefore, I'm in charge of welcoming you. Please don't mind," Wallman said in a polite tone. In reality, this was just an excuse. The upper echelons of the Hut civilization did not show up on purpose because the Hut civilization had secretly cooperated with Dark Star when the Dark Star was causing trouble. Now that they heard that Black Star was visiting, they felt a little guilty and decided to send an insignificant official to welcome him. This was to observe Black Star's attitude and see why Black Star wanted to meet Rosalind. However, Wallman did not know any of this. From his perspective, the fact that the upper echelons did not show up represented the Hut civilization's attitude toward Black Star. Although they followed the trend and invited Black Star to build a subbase 3 years ago, they did not pay too much attention to this nouveau riche and still maintain the modesty that a star system civilization should have. This attitude made Wallman very satisfied. In Wallman's eyes, Black Star was just a nouveau riche. Although Black Star was strong, he was not the only beyond grade A. He only made use of the storm of public opinion 3 years ago to make the Black Star course soar. In Wallman's eyes, he was just a nouveau riche. Black Star was just a native from a backward planet. As an elite of an old star system civilization, Wallman had a sense of superiority and did not think highly of the Black Star Corps. However, as a well-trained diplomat, this contempt was naturally hidden perfectly and maintained a respect on the surface. "You don't have to be so polite." Han Xiao waved his hand. Wallman nodded. "We have received your notice. Rosalind is locked up in a secret prison on this planet. You can meet her at any time. Do you want to rest first or meet her first?" "Meet her in the prison first." "Okay, please follow me." A hover car with an official license was parked outside the port. Han Xiao and Reynolds followed Wallman into the car and headed to the prison where Rosalind was. The hover car drove smoothly without any tremors. The scenery outside the window flew by quickly. Inside the car, Han Xiao chatted with Wallman occasionally. Reynolds sat by the side and did not smile. No one knew what he was thinking. Ralph had given him a super long vacation, so Han Xiao had plenty of time to deal with his personal matters. 7 days ago, he had received a mission from Reynolds. After discovering that Rosalind was someone he knew, he immediately put aside all other arrangements and made saving Rosalind his top priority. Considering Rosalind's identity, Han Xiao brought Reynolds along as well. He said it was to let the siblings meet, but in reality, it was to let Rosalind let down her guard. Originally, although Han Xiao valued Reynolds, he did not think of him as someone with a strong background. However, after seeing Reynolds' sister, he knew that he was definitely going to make this brother of his. Han Xiao did not hide it and asked Reynolds in a voice that everyone in the car could hear, "You're going to see your sister that you haven't seen for a long time. Are you nervous?" "No." Reynolds shook his head. "My impression of her is already very faint. Even if we meet, I have nothing to say to her. We'll just go our separate ways. You want me to help you save Rosalind, but you don't want anything in return? It seems like your feelings for Rosalind are not as faint as you said." Han Xiao chuckled. "Family members should take care of each other. Even if she abandoned me before, I should still help her when she's in trouble." Reynolds' expression was serious. Wallman listened with a smile and secretly memorized this information. Rosalind seemed to be the family of one of Blackstar's generals. Maybe this was the purpose of Blackstar's visit. He had to report it to the higher-ups later. More than 2 hours later, the hover car drove into a military base, entered the underground tunnel, and stopped at the entrance of an underground prison. The thick alloy door was open, and the warden and the guards are already waiting there. "Your Excellency Blackstar, we're here. Please let me lead the way." Wallman got out of the car and opened the door for Han Shao. He then talked to the warden for a while and led the way respectfully. This prison was very advanced, using all kinds of interstellar technology. It was very quiet, and only the buzzing of the various mechanical guards could be heard. The ceiling was equipped with all kinds of automatic weapons that automatically aimed at any heat-sensitive target. The security was very tight. Han Shao admired it as he walked and learned a lot. He decided that after this was over, he would go back and renovate the Happy Hut. They walked past several areas and came to the single confinement cell in the deepest part. They stopped in front of an alloy cell. "The person you want to see is inside." Wallman nodded. The warden opened the cell door, and everyone walked in. The space inside was not narrow, and it was divided into 2 areas by translucent, high-strength synthetic glass. Inside the glass was Rosalind's cell. Compared to Reynolds' photo, Rosalind's long hair had been shaved short, and she was wearing a shabby prison uniform. She still looked young, and there were no traces of age on her. Instead, she had a pitiful temperament. With just one look, Han Shao knew that this woman's highest attribute was most likely charm. She might even be on par with Fu Ding. The cell was dark, and the strong light outside the door shone in. Rosalind narrowed her eyes uncomfortably and looked at the people in front of the glass. Although she was a prisoner, her aura was stable, and her face was calm. It has been 147 days since you last looked for me. What do you want me to do this time?" Reynolds said, "Do you still recognize me?" Rosalind heard this and turned to look at Reynolds' face. She narrowed her eyes and looked at him for a while. "Could it be that you are my long-dead father?" "I'm Reynolds." "Oh, brother, so you're still alive." Rosalind sighed in disappointment. She did not seem surprised that Reynolds was here at all. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to save you," Reynolds said with a deep voice. "I haven't seen you for decades, and you're still as stupid." Rosalind pouted at the warden beside her. "Do you think he's deaf? His Excellency Blackstar will try to get you out." "Blackstar?" She raised her eyebrows. "I don't know him." Han Shao did not say anything and had a weird expression. The scene of siblings meeting was different from what he had imagined. Shouldn't they be hugging each other and crying together? He looked at Rosalind in the cell and clicked his tongue in wonder. He did not expect that the core member of the future Silver Revolutionary Army would be the family of one of his officers. The Silver Revolutionary Army was a main storyline of a large version. They were not rebelling against some small fry, but the 3 universal civilizations. Since they were going to start a revolution, they naturally had to win the hearts of the people. Rosalind was an important and indispensable member, aka missionary. Even if he did not come, someone would sooner or later take a fancy to Rosalind's ability and save her. He had to make the first move. Rosalind was a key character in a large main storyline, so Han Shao was especially concerned about her. He might be able to enter the Silver Revolutionary Army's plot through this clue. According to the time, the Silver Revolutionary Army should not have been formed yet. Putting aside Rosalind's identity, she also had potential. Although her Esper ability did not have much combat power, she was an irreplaceable special talent when it came to bewitching people and inciting the masses. Her Esper ability seemed very ordinary at first glance, but in fact, the final form of this Esper ability was enough to be listed on the super high-risk Esper ability restriction list. It had a terrifying ideological contagion. It was not a military conquest, but a cultural conquest. Although it did not have any actual lethality, it was a killing weapon that could subvert any ruling class. Rosalind was born to be a revolutionary and a religious talent. Of course, it was also very useful if it was used to consolidate the ruling class's position. Everyone walked out of the cell, and the warden closed the door again. "You've seen her, Your Excellency Black Star. Do you have any other requests?" Wallman asked. Han Shao glanced at Reynold, then stroked his chin and said, "Indeed, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can bail Rosalind out. As you can see, she's the family of this officer of mine. As far as I know, she didn't break any laws of the Hutt civilization. You're only imprisoning her on behalf of the Sisira civilization. As long as you're willing to let her go, I can talk to the Sisira's people myself. Hehe, this matter is beyond my jurisdiction. I have to inform the upper echelons. Please wait a moment." Wallman was not surprised at all. He had already guessed Black Star's intentions. He walked to the side, took out his communicator, and called the upper echelons. After talking for a while, he hung up and came back to Han Shao with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry. This is an internal matter of our civilization. Rosalind is an important prisoner and will not accept any bail." Although the star system civilizations valued Han Shao and wanted to have a good relationship with him, they would not give him whatever he wanted. If it was an ordinary prisoner, it might be fine, but Rosalind was also an important chess piece in the eyes of the Hutt civilization. Of course, they would not hand her over just because Han Shao said so. Is that so? Forget it then. Han Shao shook his head in disappointment. "Thank you for your understanding." Wallman had a polite smile on his face as he said the official words. However, he was secretly sneering and could not help but criticize in his heart. "You're not even a beyond Greta yet, and you want to bail her out with just one sentence." Chapter 688. Since the upper echelons of the Hutt civilization were not willing to hand him over, there was no need for him to stay in the prison any longer. Han Shao expressed his intention to leave immediately, and Wallman tried to persuade him to stay a few more times. They then boarded the hover car and returned to the port. The atmosphere in the car was silent, and no one spoke. Han Shao closed his eyes to rest, and Reynold wanted to say something, but did not. Wallman secretly observed Han Zhao's expression. He felt that Black Star would definitely be unhappy about being rejected, but he did not care about what Han Shao thought. After all, he was only relaying the message to the upper echelons. Whether Black Star was unhappy about this had nothing to do with him. Furthermore, Wallman did not feel that it was a big deal to make Black Star unhappy. Civilizations were always the mainstream of this universe, and no matter how strong Black Star was, he was not an official. As a diplomat, he felt that he could express the attitude of the upper echelons. The Hutt civilization had no intention of roping in Black Star. Currently, Purple Crystal was already ahead of them, and they could not compete with a star cluster civilization. There are so many star system civilizations trying to curry favor with Black Star, and they were just one of them. Ghidorah was the star system civilization closest to Black Star, and they were Ghidorah's competitors. No matter how he looked at it, it was impossible for Black Star to have a close relationship with the Hutt civilization. Therefore, Wallman felt that the upper echelons knew that they did not have a chance, so they were too lazy to rope in Black Star. If they could not get anything back by handing over Rosalind, why would they lower themselves and satisfy Black Star's request? As long as they were like the other star system civilizations and used the Black Star Corps' base as a superficial connection, it would be enough. In Wallman's eyes, Black Star's action of wanting to hand someone over with just one sentence was a sign of arrogance. Star system civilizations like us will definitely give you face, but we will not give you face for everything. Just as Wallman was trying to figure out what the upper echelons were thinking, the hover car finally arrived at the port. Han Shao and Reynold got off the car and boarded the spaceship. Wallman accompanied them all the way. Stepping on the gangway, just as they were about to enter the cabin, Han Shao turned around and looked at Wallman, who was at the port, and suddenly smiled. "We'll meet again soon. You're welcome to visit me again." Wallman put on a sincere fake smile. The spaceship shuddered and started moving. It turned into a high-speed stream of light and disappeared into the horizon. Watching the spaceship leave, Wallman stopped smiling, pinched his stiff facial muscles, and turned to wave at his team members. Done. 5 days passed peacefully. On this day, The delicate boy Wallman spent his days in the Skywalker Galaxy's Black Star core branch as usual. An urgent notice was sent to his mailbox, saying that a team from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was about to arrive at the Black Star core branch, and he had to be prepared to receive them. That's weird. Why did they send someone to the Black Star core division without any prior notice? What are they trying to do? This notice did not follow the procedures, nor did it explain the purpose of this group of colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Wallman was a little confused, but since it was a mission assigned by the higher-ups, he could only complete it. After gathering his team members and making arrangements to receive them, Wallman brought them to the port of the branch and waited for the arrival of this group of colleagues. This Black Star core satellite base was built on the outer orbit of the resource planet. It orbited the planet and supervised the mining teams on the planet. The port was a floating galactic spaceport built next to the satellite base. It was an independent small space station. Wallman waited for more than half an hour. An official spaceship with the Hutt civilization's logo approached from afar and docked at the spaceport. The spaceship stopped, and the hatch slowly opened. A group of people dressed as diplomats accompanied a few purple crystal people as they walked down the gangway, while chatting and laughing. Wallman hurriedly walked up and introduced himself. This is Wallman, the person in charge of diplomacy in the Black Star core branch. These are the emissaries from the Amethyst civilization. We've just completed a handover and are about to rest here, a diplomat said elegantly. Emissaries from the Amethyst civilization. Wallman was shocked. Purple Crystal was the civilization in charge of Colton, and Hutt was only one of the star system civilizations. Sending an emissary to visit was an important diplomatic mission. Wallman could not help but be envious of this group of colleagues from the Foreign Affairs Department who were happily chatting with the Purple Crystal emissaries. They were able to interact with emissaries from star cluster civilizations and were usually active in the political arena between civilizations. Their work was more elegant and dignified, but he was sent to be in charge of an armed organization. I'll be transferred back sooner or later. Wallman consoled himself. Back then, the higher-ups had sent him to be in charge of the Black Star core branch because they believed in his capabilities and that there would not be any mistakes. An elite diplomat like him would definitely return to the Foreign Affairs Department. Just as he was about to invite the Purple Crystal emissaries to rest, a woman was escorted down the spaceship by a few armed personnel. Wallman turned around and was instantly stunned. The woman who was escorted over was Rosalind, whom he had met with Black Star a few days ago. Wallman's eyes flashed with shock. He pulled a colleague who was accompanying the Purple Crystal emissaries and whispered, "Why is she on your spaceship? Why did you bring her over?" That colleague was stunned. "You know her? She's a felon that the Purple Crystal emissaries specially sent to receive. Her name is Rosalind." Wallman's heart skipped a beat, and he instantly thought of Black Star. Could it be, at this time, another spaceship landed? Wallman recognized this battleship. It was Black Star's spaceship. The hatch opened, and Han Shao walked down with Reynolds. The few Purple Crystal emissaries who did not usually smile smiled, and went up to them. After chatting for a while, the Purple Crystal emissaries waved their hands, and a few armed personnel escorted Rosalind to Han Shao. They removed all the restraints on her and released her on the spot. Rosalind rubbed her wrists, glanced at Reynolds, and looked deeply at Han Shao. She did not say anything and was brought into the blacklight stealth by Reynolds. Han Shao turned around and saw Wallman standing at the edge of the crowd in a daze. He smiled and walked over. "As I said, we will meet again very soon. You..." Wallman suddenly did not know what to say to deal with the situation in front of him. "Actually, it's not a big deal. Your Hutt civilization doesn't allow bail, so I can only find a civilization that allows bail." Han Shao raised his eyebrows. Wallman's lips trembled, and he forced a stiff smile. He had 10,000 curses in his heart, but he did not dare to say them out loud. From the corner of his eyes, he saw that his colleague was smiling like a spring breeze, as if he knew this would happen, and he was the only one who was kept in the dark. At this moment, he felt that his most precious sense of superiority was shattered into pieces, and it was shattered by the Hutt civilization's government that gave him this sense of superiority. Han Shao did not look at him anymore. He turned around and shook hands with the purple crystal emissaries. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he boarded the spaceship and left with Rosalind. Wallman clenched his fists and forced a smile again. Work was more important when dealing with the purple crystal emissaries. After settling these emissaries down, Wallman returned to his office. He was the only one in the room for now. Sitting in his seat, Wallman let out a long sigh. He wanted to suppress his thoughts, pick up the book, and continue reading, but he realized that he could not focus. Thinking about Black Star, Wallman did not feel good. He secretly comforted himself that this was a game between the upper echelons, and it had nothing to do with him. He did not have any conflict with Black Star. Luckily, he had always maintained diplomatic etiquette. No one knew how much Black Star had mocked him in his mind. As long as he did not fight with himself, no one would know that he felt embarrassed. Beep beep. At this time, Wallman's communicator rang. He opened it and saw that it was a message from his direct superior. His Excellency Black Star told us that he was very satisfied with your reception and felt very comfortable. He also hopes to see you again next time. Your transfer application will be postponed for now. You will continue to be in charge of the diplomatic missions of the Black Star Corps Division. Bang. A few team members were about to push the door open and enter when they suddenly heard the sound of something being smashed in the office. They hurriedly pushed the door open and saw that Team Leader Wallman's face, which had always been calm, was now ashen. The floor beside his table was full of debris. The crystal cup that he usually used was smashed into pieces, and the green drink with the physical book that he usually took care of. Blacklight Stealth, main hall of the cabin. The three of them each sat in a corner of the circular sofa, forming a tripartite formation. Rosalind's eyes kept moving between Han Xiao and Reynolds. Reynolds sat upright and looked straight ahead. Han Xiao leaned against the sofa with one hand on the back of the chair and the other holding a wine glass. He looked at Rosalind with interest. You saved me because you want me to do something for you. Don't be shy. Tell me. Rosalind broke the silence first, her tone cynical. Reynolds frowned. I just wanted to save you. That's enough. Save those words for yourself. Rosalind interrupted Reynolds, crossed her legs, and said with a mocking expression, I don't know this, Your Excellency Black Star. In order to get me out, you even invited people from Purple Crystal. The cost must be quite high. I don't believe that you paid such a huge price just to fulfill the wish of a stupid subordinate. Ha! You should have told this black something about my ability. Sorry, your nickname is too stupid. I can't be bothered to say it out loud. Is this woman a porcupine? She will attack anyone she catches. Han Xiao mumbled to himself. He remembered that Rosalind did not have such a personality during the Silver Revolutionary Army in his previous life. Reynolds said with a deep voice, I'm using myself as an exchange to ask His Excellency Black Star to save you. Don't be ungrateful. Oh, Rosalind curled her lips and said, So, you think I'll definitely be grateful to you? You. Reynolds was annoyed. I'm quite curious. This black something actually agreed to such a request. Is there anything about you that he values? Rosalind sized Reynolds up. I'm already a calamity grade. Wow, you've grown up, haven't you? Rosalind opened her mouth wide exaggeratedly and clapped her hands twice, not showing any sincerity at all. She shrugged and said, So, you're saying that he values you a lot? Reynolds was speechless. Han Xiao was right beside him, and he did not want to boast that he was valued. He felt like he was overthinking. Ahem. Han Xiao interrupted their conversation and said, Inviting the Amethyst civilization is not difficult for me. You've been locked up for too long and have never heard of my name. It was impossible for him to use force. Even if he had the status now, as long as he attacked a civilization, he would still be punished. The army was still growing, so it was impossible for him to destroy his own foundation. As for removing the base to show his attitude, it would not have a good impact. It would make the other galactic civilizations feel that he was kidnapping the will of a galactic regime. He was not a beyond grade yet, so it was not good to be too domineering. It was not conducive to maintaining a stable relationship. It was actually very easy to solve this problem. If the Hutt civilization could take over Rosalind from Cyrus, Purple Crystal could also take over the prisoners from them. All they had to do was transfer one of them. Purple Crystal valued him far more than Hut did, because he and Purple Crystal were equal partners, and Hut knew that he could not compete with them. No matter how strong Black Star was, he was not their strongest ally, so Hut could not be bothered to curry favor with him. Of course, he would not give him any face. However, showing loyalty to Purple Crystal would bring many benefits. Therefore, if Purple Crystal took action, the Hut civilization would be able to turn around. Small impact and high efficiency. This was Han Zhao's first choice. If it were the players doing this mission, they would have to use brute force to break out of prison. Is that so? Seems like you're a big shot. Rosalind raised her brows. It seems like I need to study the history of the past decade. As she spoke, Rosalind stood up slowly, walked in front of Han Zhao, grabbed his wine glass, and drank it all in one gulp. She then threw the empty glass away, sat down again, burped, and waved her hand casually. I'm thirsty, so I borrowed some. A big shot like you definitely won't lower yourself to my level, right? Han Zhao turned to look at Reynolds. Your sister has quite a personality. She's like a scoundrel. She's always been so casual and mean since she was young. She never considered the feelings of others. Reynolds could not help but complain. So, I'm not surprised that she became an ambitious schemer who toyed with the entire civilization. Yeah, I'm an ambitious schemer, a scoundrel. If you let me out, countless people will suffer. Do you regret saving me, my dear little brother? Rosalind made a face. No, Reynolds snorted, not bothering to argue with her. TSK, I'm a little touched. What should I do? Sure enough, no matter how much you hurt your family is always willing to be the scapegoat. Rosalind stretched and said lazily, since you're not going to use me, can I leave at will? If you refuse, I'll take it that you're still going to use me. Of course, you don't have to be ashamed of your hypocrisy. I've seen this kind of thing many times. Hearing this, Reynolds turned to look at Han Zhao. He only wanted to save Rosalind and fulfill his duty. As for where Rosalind would go in the future, he did not care at all. Only Han Zhao could make the decision to let her go. Han Zhao rubbed his chin and suddenly asked, You founded the new church in your hometown and brainwashed countless people to make them believe in you. Everyone thinks that you're an ambitious schemer. Well, you have the same vision as all the ordinary people in the world. At the same time, you also like to repeat nonsense. Rosalind's face was full of sarcasm. What is a big shot like you trying to criticize my actions? Tell me, I'll try to repent for 1 minute. Any more than that would be too much. But I don't think you're an ambitious schemer. You're a reformer. Han Zhao leaned forward and stared into Rosalind's eyes. His tone was neither light nor heavy. He started to fertilize her. As soon as he finished speaking, Chapter 689. Cough, I'm just kidding. My thoughts were drifting today. My writing period was even more timely than my period. I wrote more than 700 words of text. After reading it, I felt that I must have awakened some strange attribute when I was writing it. It was all strange ideas. My eyes were almost blinded by it. So I planned to adjust the outline of the subsequent plot, cut out some side plots, and simplify the direction of the subsequent plot. The main thing is to respond to the call of my brothers to enter version 3.0 as soon as possible so that the leaks can return. So brothers, please let me stand up for a day. I'll adjust the plot plan during the version update period and increase the density of the plot. Goo! Chapter 690. Interesting. This is the first time someone has lied and praised me. Rosalind forced a sarcastic smile to hide the panic in her heart. You can disguise yourself with your ambition, but you can't fool everyone. You created the new church and changed the people's faith not because of your ambition. You have other intentions. Han Zhao smiled. Han Zhao had limited knowledge of Rosalind, but in his previous life, in the Silver Revolutionary Army version, the players had collected a lot of information about Rosalind. After Han Zhao recognized Rosalind, he recalled this information. A considerable part of it was Rosalind's past. She had told others about her past. Although she did not tell the players where her hometown was, she had mentioned what she had done in her hometown and her motives. According to this information, Han Xiao knew that Rosalind's true motives had nothing to do with ambition. She did not manipulate the faith for power. Han Xiao knew Rosalind better than she did. To be able to become the backbone of the Silver Revolutionary Army, other than having a special ability, she also had a heart that was not satisfied with the status quo and a unique ambition. Rosalind's heart skipped a beat. This was the first person to see through her disguise. She hurriedly suppressed the shock in her heart and stabilized her mind with caution and vigilance. This was a habit that she had developed over the years. Blackstar has only seen me twice, and he's already saying all this for no reason. He must have some ulterior motive. He must be exaggerating on purpose. How could he know what I'm thinking? The true motive of building the church and gathering faith had always been the deepest secret in her heart. Rosalind had never told anyone else. She did not think that Blackstar would be able to guess it. Reynold also turned to look at Han Xiao suspiciously. Could it be that his sister had other secrets? Your ability is to subtly change people's mental appearance. The effect is not strong, and you can't completely control others as you wish. However, you can instill all kinds of thoughts in them. With a confident look, Han Xiao slowly said, "Thoughts are invisible, but they are like the strings that control a puppet, affecting every aspect of an individual. Whether he is loyal or rebellious, passionate or hypocritical, cheerful or gloomy, a lot of these depend on his thoughts. The same environment can create different people, and it's also because of his thoughts." As he spoke, he pointed at Rosalind, who was forcing herself to calm down, and smiled. The new thoughts you give them through your ability are very contagious. In the eyes of the government in your hometown, your thoughts are a virus, but in my eyes, your thoughts are a seed that can change the development of thousands of people. Rosalind's expression changed. Without waiting for her to react, Han Xiao continued speaking unhurriedly. The personality of a civilization depends partly on their nature and partly on the traditional thoughts passed down from ancient times. Those that cannot be controlled by future generations will change independently at various stages of the historical process. In the end, these thoughts left behind by history will eventually dissolve into the bloodline of this race and become their mental foundation. History only happens once, and a race does not have a second chance to choose. It could even be said that there is no chance to choose at all. From a macroscopic perspective, the culture and personality of a civilization and race is almost random. Finding a result that may not be the best solution in the endless variables, or, of course, there may not even be an optimal solution. I call you a reformer because I know that you didn't establish a sect in your hometown for power, but to reform your own race. Han Xiao smiled. To be honest, I'm a little impressed by your ambition. What you want to change is not a regime or a system. What you want to change is the culture, ideology, and spiritual pursuit of the entire race, thereby changing the spiritual foundation of a race. This news was like a hurricane. Reynold was shocked. His mouth was wide open as he stared at Rosalind. If what Han Xiao said was true, his sister's plan was simply unbelievably huge. As if struck by lightning, Rosalind was dumbfounded. Her face was filled with disbelief. Han Xiao smiled secretly. These were the motives that Rosalind had set herself in his previous life. Now, she was using them to fool the person in question. The effect was off the charts. After a pause, he continued, "Reforming the system and the government is not as long-lasting as changing the mental foundation of the entire race. Many problems are human problems. Personality determines fate. When there is no external influence, this rule also applies to a civilization. History is already set. In the process of a civilization's development, there is basically no chance to actively change its personality. What you're doing is implanting new thoughts into the race through the form of abilities and religion, giving them the opportunity to change. This is your race transformation plan." Han Xiao touched his chin. But you're just an individual in this race. In the eyes of others, you don't have a right to change everyone's thoughts. Everyone has been imprinted with history and tradition during their growth. You can't change the deep-rooted traditions that have been passed down for thousands of years. so you've become a heretic and a sinner. In his opinion, Rosalind's actions were simply aiming to become a saint. Han Xiao could not help but mock Rosalind in his mind, denying history and denying the national spirit that has been passed down. You're very empty, and your thoughts are too dangerous. There really is no problem locking you up. However, this woman's thoughts are not wrong. Han Zhao's eyes darted around. If there were no Confucianism in the history of his previous life, then the ideas passed down by the people thousands of years later would be different, and the logic of how people conducted themselves would also change to a certain extent. In that case, China might have been able to expand its territory in history. And the simplest way to change the mental outlook of a race is through religion and school. Therefore, you chose to establish a sect, gather believers, and subtly change people's personalities. This is your true motive. Han Xiao stared at Rosalind with great interest. Am I right? Rosalind's hands trembled. She took a deep breath and looked at Han Xiao with a complicated expression. You're right. Rosalind's tone was low, and her frivolous attitude was completely gone. At this moment, Han Xiao vaguely saw the aura of a sex pope from her. She looked straight into Han Zhao's eyes and said in a deep voice, I'm not that noble. Reynolds and my parents died in a political protest, and the Sisira civilization disappointed me time and time again. That's why I wanted to change some things. You're right. I really don't have the power to change the mental outlook of the entire race, and they might not need me. However, if no one does something extraordinary under the pressure, nothing will change. I've established the sect for many years, but I only managed to change a small portion of people's personalities. Through the teachings and Esper ability, I made them positive, let them grasp the present, and made them better. As long as the sect continues to be passed down, even without my Esper ability in the future, these thoughts will become more and more deeply rooted in people's hearts. Unfortunately, it caused a backlash. After so many years of suffering, Rosalind was deeply wary of everyone. Her vicious tongue and frivolous attitude were her protective disguise. Because there were too many people trying to deceive and use her, she had once made up her mind not to open her heart to anyone. Even if she was misunderstood, she would not defend herself. However, this was the first time Rosalind had confided in an outsider. She stared at Han Xiao, and a complicated feeling rose in her heart. There was shock, relief, and a trace of comfort from meeting someone who understood her. These were the deepest secrets in her heart, and she had never told anyone else. However, Blackstar saw through it so easily and said her true thoughts. This was also the first time Rosalind had met someone who understood her so well. She almost lost her composure. Reynolds was speechless. He looked at Rosalind in disbelief and sized her up as if he suspected that his sister had been replaced by someone else. He could not imagine that Rosalind would have such lofty ambitions. She wanted to fly to the sky and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Seeing Rosalind admit it, Han Xiao was secretly excited. This fertilization method was indeed as useful as before. In his previous life, the Silver Revolutionary Army had tricked her this way. Achoo! On Blue Star, Bennett suddenly sneezed. After Rosalind finished speaking, the room became quiet. The few of them did not speak for a while. Han Xiao knocked on the table and took the initiative to speak. Then what are your plans in the future? You can't go back to Sisira. You're now a prisoner of Purple Crystal in name. I've bailed you out, so you can't run around. Rosalind heard that and glanced at Reynolds. She smiled gently. I understand. After saying so much, you still want me to stay. You're a talent. I like talents. Han Xiao naturally did not have to deny it. Since my brother is working for you, even if you use me, you won't go overboard. All right, you used your connections to save me. I owe you a favor. My brother is my brother. I won't use him to repay your favor. Furthermore, I don't have much combat power. I'm definitely not a match for a big shot like you. Rosalind stretched and regained her playful attitude. She blinked at Han Xiao and deliberately revealed a flirtatious expression. Since I can't escape, I have no choice. I'll lend my body to you as a tool. Use it as you wish. Don't stand on ceremony. Okay. Han Xiao nodded without batting an eyelid. However, He cursed in his heart. Damn, still pretending. Do you think I can't see such a huge plus 80 red heart favorability? Will you die if you tell me honestly that you're very grateful? Will you die? With the biggest problem settled, Han Xiao asked Reynolds to take Rosalind to rest and eat something to replenish her nutrition. After being locked up for so many years, Rosalind's body was rather weak. She urgently needed to recover. After the two of them left, Han Xiao remained in the hall alone. He tapped his fingers on the sofa and pondered about how to make use of Rosalind's special talent. Rosalind's ability was very suitable for ideological construction. He felt that he could use her to strengthen the corporate culture of the Black Star Corps and cultivate slogans such as, "Let the Black Star's radiance spread throughout the galaxy," and "May the Black Star rise again." Bloodshed Land also had people specialized in ideological construction. In other words, Rosalind can take on the role of political commissar. Han Xiao touched his lips excitedly. Using mental construction to make leeks grow stronger, wasn't this a powerful compound fertilizer? Moreover, her ability is very special. In the future, the Silver Revolutionary Army might still target her. I can't keep such an ambitious person around forever. In this case, if she becomes a core member of the Silver Revolutionary Army, like in my previous life, I might be able to form good karma with them and maintain a good relationship with them. We won't become enemies. The Silver Revolutionary Army was naturally very powerful to be able to become a main storyline of a large version. Although Han Xiao did not want to join them to rebel against the three universal civilizations at all, he did not want to become enemies with them either. Perhaps through Rosalind, he could discover traces of the Silver Revolutionary Army before they did anything. Then, he would be able to react in advance. Han Xiao thought about it and felt that there was nothing wrong with his train of thought. He then opened the interface. In the mission list, the Reformer mission had already been completed, and he had already obtained the reward. A completed Reynolds character summon card was in the interface. It can be used 3 times, and each time lasts for 16 hours. It seems like this type of character summon card also takes into account the period of time needed to build machinery. It can be used for both combat and construction. Han Xiao was quite satisfied. With the effect of this character summon card, it would not be a problem to build orange equipment. He only needed to complete the blueprint mission and obtain the Silver Legacy blueprint. After looking at the effect again, Han Xiao became more and more envious of Reynolds. I really want to obtain the original perfect mechanical sense talent. Sigh, we are different. After saving Rosalind, Han Xiao split up with Reynolds. He had Reynolds bring Rosalind back to the headquarters and settle her down. He then piloted the spaceship and left the Colton Star Cluster, heading toward the location of the blueprint mission. Be it the matters of the Black Star Corps, Vilna, or Rosalind, none of them were as important as his class advancement mission. Only by increasing his strength could he maintain his current foundation. With the hope of completing the class advancement mission, Han Xiao put down the other work in his hands and focused on the class advancement. Chapter 691. Terralam Star Cluster, Wormhole Sector 0358. There were many blue-black wormholes of various sizes in this area, tearing apart space. The space-time coordinate coefficient was constantly fluctuating. A small spaceship carefully traveled through this unstable space. It was Han Zhao's spaceship. The central area of the Shattered Star Ring was a large group of wormholes that belonged to the Terralam Star Cluster. This dangerous area was called the Wormhole Zone, and there were very few people there. Only a few large star cluster civilizations had stationed people there and built wormhole observation stations, dividing the Wormhole Zone into hundreds and thousands of sectors. The central wormhole zone of the Shattered Star Ring was connected to many corners of the universe. The job of the wormhole observation stations was to measure the location of the other end of a portion of the wormholes. However, as the wormholes were extremely unstable, old wormholes would often disappear and new wormholes would appear, so the progress of the measurement was very slow. According to official data, only 1 in 2. 4 million wormholes have been measured so far. Han Zhao's destination was the observation station of Wormhole Sector 0358. The one who had issued the Level 180 Silver Legacy Blueprint mission was a mechanic who maintained this wormhole observation station. After passing through the wormhole zone, a small space station appeared in his vision. Han Xiao pressed the control panel of the spaceship and sent a landing request to the space station. He received permission very quickly. He then docked the spaceship with the space station and entered the port. The bottom of the spaceship was fitted with a magnetic track, and after sliding for a while in the narrow passage, it finally opened up and entered the port. Walking out of the spaceship, Han Xiao greeted the maintenance staff at the port. "Your Excellency Black Star, you're here to look for Professor Hariful again?" The maintenance staff replied with a smile. Where is he now?" Han Xiao nodded. "You came at the right time." Professor Hariful went out with the survey team to collect wormhole parameters and only returned 2 days ago. He's now doing experiments in the lab. "Thanks." Han Xiao smiled and walked away from the port, heading to the lab of the Wormhole Observation Station. This Wormhole Observation Station did not belong to Clint or Purple Crystal, but belonged to another star cluster civilization in the Shattered Star Ring. It did not participate in the Secret War and was considered to be half-neutral. Hariful was a research-type mechanic and was not good at fighting. He was a professor in one of the official machinery schools of this star cluster civilization and had always been at the forefront of technology, researching various topics. In order to study the wormholes, he had taken the initiative to apply to maintain the observatory. At the same time, he was also the one who issued the blueprint mission. Han Xiao had already reached the 7th round of the blueprint mission. He had come to this observation station several times, and the people here were already familiar with him. Arriving at the research lab without any obstructions, Han Xiao reported his identity through the security and waited outside for a while. The door opened, and Hariful walked out. He glared at Han Xiao and said in annoyance, "It's you again. You're disturbing my experiment." "Experiments can be done at any time, but I don't get to see them all the time." Han Xiao laughed. Hariful was an old man. His skin was purple with a tinge of red, and his hair and beard were all white. He was very old, but his back was very straight, and he looked even more muscular than a young man. He was an old man. To the mechanic class, knowledge was power. Hariful had a deep understanding of all kinds of mechanical theories and was very talented in the mechanic class. Furthermore, he had been immersed in this field for many years, so it was very normal for him to become a grade A mechanic. However, Hariful had always been focused on researching technology and rarely fought with others. Although his level was not low, he had many subclasses like Scholar. His combat strength was at the bottom of the grade A supers. A star system civilization had dozens of official grade A supers, and a star cluster civilization naturally had dozens of times more grade A supers. After Han Xiao entered the Calamity grade, he had basically interacted with people of the same level, so it appeared that there were many Calamity grades. In reality, compared to the huge number of grade B and C supers, the absolute number of Calamity grades was still very small. They were extremely rare in the galaxy. As the saying went, only people of the same level would interact with each other. Those below the Calamity grade would rarely meet a Calamity grade super. Star cluster civilizations had relatively more grade A supers, so they could afford to raise some talents who did not need to fight. For example, Hariful had low combat strength and specialized in scientific research. Although Hariful focused on his research, he knew that Blackstar was also a master mechanic, so he still had some basic respect for him. He temporarily put down his research and invited Han Xiao to the guest room for a chat. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao brought the topic back to the blueprint mission. This Silver Legacy blueprint was Hariful's private property, and Han Xiao had long reached an agreement with him. As long as he helped him do some things, Hariful was willing to teach the blueprint to Han Xiao. The mission had already reached the 7th round. Hariful thought about it and stated his request. A notification sounded on Han Xiao's interface. He looked at the new round of the blueprint mission. The mission was not difficult, just cumbersome. Han Xiao did not waste any time and ended the chat. He bade farewell to Herifel and left the observatory immediately to complete the mission. There were a total of 10 rounds to the level 180 silver blueprint mission. To the current Han Shao, it was not dangerous at all and only required some time to complete. In the next half a month, Han Shao ran around the observatory, focusing on completing mission after mission. Ralph had given him a very long holiday this time, so he had plenty of time. Along the way, he did not encounter any unexpected trouble, and everything went smoothly. After more than 10 days, the blueprint mission in the mission list finally showed a completed status. Han Shao immediately returned to the observatory and found Herifel to hand in the mission. Herifel brought Han Shao to his private room, rummaged through the cabinets, and found a square mechanical safe. He entered his mechanical force as the password, and the mechanical parts of the safe started to move like a Rubik's Cube. After a while, the safe opened with a click. Herifel reached out and took out a thick stack of mechanical blueprints. He shook it a little and placed it on the table. "All right, according to our agreement, this blueprint is yours." "How strange. You've been busy with the war for the past few years, yet you've taken the time to help me. Could it be that this blueprint has some special use to you?" "You can say that." Han Shao nodded. Seeing that Han Shao did not say anything, Herifel did not ask further. He flipped through the blueprint on the table and said, "This is what you want. I got it from someone else, so it's not a secret. Although it's interesting technology, it's not very advanced. It seems to be a blueprint passed down by an ancient mechanic. Let me take a look first." Han Shao quickly browsed through the blueprint, and the reading progress popped up on the interface. His intelligence attribute was extremely high, so his reading speed was extremely fast. In less than 10 seconds, he had finished reading this complicated blueprint. With the interface, as long as his intelligence was high enough, the speed at which he could learn a blueprint was thousands of times faster than a normal mechanic. "You have received Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon Blueprint. X1, you have learned a new skill, Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon Blueprint." Finally, Han Shao let out a long sigh and looked at the blueprint introduction on the interface. Legacy blueprints usually had a rather Chinibya name. The Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon was a level 180 machine, a strategic weapon that could strike planets. It was a cannon master's equipment, and as a mechanic, he could use it too. Energy cannons were mostly hot high-energy particle streams, while the Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon was extremely cold. The blueprint introduction said that if the Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon was raised to the highest power, it could trigger the climate of a planet with one shot, causing it to enter an ice age. Although its destructive power was not as strong as a proper Star Destroyer cannon, it was still an extremely powerful weapon. Perhaps because the Ice Age Star Freezing Cannon was from a long time ago, the knowledge requirements were relatively easy. Among the cutting-edge knowledges, he only needed to grasp abnormal state energy and controllable annihilation weapon, which happened to be in Han Zhao's knowledge base, so he did not need to look for new cutting-edge knowledges. This star freezing cannon requires a lot of rare materials. Looks like I'll have to go back to build it. Looking at the cost, Han Shao was shocked. The cost of this cannon was probably even more expensive than a proper Star Destroyer cannon. The development of technology was to build high-power weapons at a low cost. Old blueprints were basically very powerful, but the cost was even higher. After all, the technology back then was not as precise as the technology in the future. However, could a problem that could be solved with money still be called problem? You can do whatever you want if you have a mind. You have money. You can do whatever you want. Putting away the blueprints, Han Shao nodded and said, "There's no problem with the item. I'll be leaving then. Are you not going to stay and chat with me? I still want to talk to you about technology." "No, I still have things to do." "Sigh, okay, I'll send you to the dock. If you have time in the future, feel free to chat with me. You have my number." Herifel felt that it was a pity. He quite liked chatting with Han Shao. Both of them were master mechanics, and there was no end to their topics. However, as soon as he left the room, the lights in the corridor suddenly turned into bright red warning lights, and an ear-piercing alarm echoed throughout the entire observatory. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Harifal's face changed drastically. Before he could say anything, a violent tremor swept through the entire observatory, and Harifal almost stumbled. Then, a series of deafening explosions came from afar. Rumble. Flames quickly spread along the corridor like a fire dragon. The entire corridor was filled with flames and surged toward the two of them. Han Xiao frowned. Nanoparticles climbed onto his palm and turned into armor. With a twist of his hand, an oval-shaped psionic shield that gradually turned blue opened up, easily blocking the flames outside. He then turned to look at Harifal. The enemy must be bombarding outside. Let's leave the observatory first. Harifal had little experience in fighting enemies, but he did not panic. He activated his mechanical suit, smashed through the corridor, broke through the outer armor of the observatory, and flew out. Han Xiao activated the Mountain 8 mechanical suit and followed him out. The two of them left the observatory, and only then did they see what was happening. Their faces changed instantly. A fleet surrounded the observatory from all directions. There were at least 500 battleships, and they focused their fire on the observatory. The protective shield was almost instantly torn apart. Continuous high-energy ion beams pierced through the observatory, turning it into a hornet's nest. At the next moment, the flames expanded, and the observation station exploded, shattering into components that filled the air. Harifal's face changed drastically. He clenched his teeth and screamed, "SH*T, my laboratory. F*CK, my spaceship." Han Zhao's eyes twitched. The blacklight stealth was driven back by Reynolds. He was only driving an ordinary small spaceship this time, but Han Xiao had also stored some army boxes on it. If they were destroyed, it would be a huge loss. Although he did not lack money, it was shameful to waste it. Han Xiao raised his hand, and the space around him rippled. The army boxes jumped over one after another. After counting them, he could not help but feel relieved. The shells of the army boxes were damaged, but the compressed orbs inside were fine. Other than the hyperdrive device, the army boxes also had a protective shield function. It was originally to prevent the enemy from attacking the army boxes, but came in handy at this moment, blocking the aftermath of the explosion. The entire observatory was turned into a pile of cosmic trash, and only a few super survived. The attack was too sudden, and the people in the observatory could not react at all. Because it was a space station for research purposes, the defense measures here were limited. After all, not many people would purposely attack a wormhole observatory set up by a star cluster civilization. Furthermore, this was the wormhole zone, and the unstable wormholes were a natural defense line. Almost no one would fight here. Who are these people? Why did they attack us? Harifal was shocked and furious. How would I know? Han Xiao was also very curious. His instincts told him that these enemies were most likely here for him. Being assassinated in the past few years had almost become a habit. He frowned and looked around at the fleet. Just as he was about to speak, his mechanical suit suddenly received a message. "We finally meet again, Black Star." This voice was a little familiar. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he looked over. His gaze passed through a part of the universe and locked onto a figure that appeared from the fleet. After seeing the appearance of this person, Han Xiao was shocked and surprised. This person was his old enemy who had been missing for many years, the leader of Dark Star. Chapter 692. Ever since Ghidorah failed to kill the Dark Star leader, Han Xiao had not seen the Dark Star leader for many years. No one knew where he was hiding, but now he had suddenly appeared with a fleet. It seemed like he had made a comeback. To actually be able to ambush me without any warning, Han Xiao frowned. The Dark Star leader definitely knew his whereabouts and had an unusual intelligence channel. He should have joined forces with some powerful organization. Only by getting rid of me will Dark Star have a chance to plot against Ghidorah. The organization that joined forces with Dark Star is probably an organization that occasionally tries to assassinate me. Both parties have the same goal, so they hit it off. Han Xiaoxin's mind spun quickly. From this, he could deduce that the Dark Star leader definitely had confidence in attacking him. With so many failed assassinations, it was impossible for the other party to not be cautious. This small fleet before him was basically no threat to him. After all, his mech legion was not to be trifled with. However, Han Xiao did not underestimate them at all. Instead, he secretly raised his guard. He felt that the Dark Star leader definitely had some unknown trump cards. Han Xiao did not have any intention of chatting. His army boxes opened, and a huge mech legion spread out like a black tide. In terms of numbers, they crushed the Dark Star leader's fleet. Han Xiao decisively attacked. Countless cannon fire seemed to light up the universe. The storm-like counterattack instantly tore dozens of battleships apart. With the current size of the mech legion, coupled with the various talents and mechanical force bonuses of the Truth Mechanic, Han Xiao alone was a galactic army. One person was enough to destroy a fleet. Countless mechanical guards and hovering guards surrounded Han Xiao, forming layer after layer of dense shields. The fleet's attacks could not penetrate them at all. They posed no threat at all. Hereful was also protected inside. He looked around at the dense mechanical army and could not help but sigh. So rich. In just a short while, the hundreds of battleships were beaten to a pulp, and almost all of them were wiped out. Han Xiao, however, frowned. The ease of the battle made him even more vigilant. He did not believe that the Dark Star leader was an ironhead who would attack without any preparation. With such a small fleet, how could they get rid of an enemy that even star cluster civilizations had a headache over? It couldn't be that he was tired of living and came up to deliver his head. At this moment, the Dark Star leader, who was dodging the Mech Legion's attacks, suddenly made a gesture to Han Xiao from afar. Several strange spell waves hit Han Xiao at lightning speed. You have been hit by the Dark Star leader's Chain of Pain, Mystic. Assessing MYS failed. Your MYS is lower than the opponent's. The spell has taken effect. Chain of Pain, Mystic. When the opponent takes damage, your health will decrease according to the percentage of the opponent's health. Every time the opponent loses 1% of their health, you will lose 0. 55%, 0. 7% of your health. You have been hit by the Dark Star leader's Life Absorption Transfer. Assessing MYS failed. Your MYS is lower than the opponent's. The spell has taken effect. Life Absorption Transfer. When you recover your health, the recovery effect will decrease by 30%. The opponent will share this 30% recovery effect. When you theoretically recover 1,000 health, the actual effect is 700 health. At the same time, the enemy will recover 300 health. You have been hit by the Dark Star leader's Heart Curse, Collapse. Assessing MYS failed. Your MYS is lower than the opponent's. The spell has taken effect. You have entered the Mind Collapse state. Mind Collapse. Your psychic resistance has decreased by 40%. You have lost control of your body and are unable to do anything. Duration: 6 twos. Han Zhao's mechanical force suddenly disappeared. His limbs did not listen to him, and he froze on the spot. Han Xiaoxin was shocked. He suddenly remembered that he had the Dark Star leader's character summon card, and it just so happened to be this Heart Curse, Collapse. He could not move at all. The Mech Legion had temporarily lost the mechanical force bonus, and the pressure on the Dark Star leader was greatly reduced. He barely managed to break out of the encirclement. His magic shield was destroyed time and time again, and he lost a certain amount of health. Through Chain of Pain, Mystic, Han Zhao's health also decreased by percentage. Looking at the combat information on the interface, Han Xiao quickly calculated in his mind. This Chain of Pain restores health by percentage. On average, the percentage of health I lose is about 60% of the Dark Star leaders, but my total health is more than double of this guy's. On the other hand, Life Drain restores health based on the actual amount of health I regenerate. I regenerate 700 health points, and he regenerates 300. However, from a percentage perspective, my health regeneration rate is actually about the same as his. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. This meant that once he regenerated his health, both of them would lose health at the same rate. At most, he would be slightly slower. It did not seem difficult to break this cycle. As long as he did not regenerate his health, he could just charge forward. This time, the Dark Star leader raised his hand, and a warm radiance spread all over his body. His wounds started to heal, and his health slowly increased. Seeing this, Han Xiao frowned. If the enemy could heal himself, he would not share the healing power of the enemy. This way, if he wanted to kill the Darkstar leader, he would have to take some risks, of course. If he only wanted to capture him, it would be much simpler. The Darkstar leader's style was obviously a curse mage. No matter what, he was still one of the boss-level characters in version 2.0. This ability was even more of a headache for Han Xiao than Ashes, and he was better at one-on-one fights. Let's capture him first. A thought flashed through Han Xiao's mind, and he decided to play it safe. No matter how good the Darkstar leader's health regeneration was, his energy was not infinite. Chain of Pain and Life Drain required continuous energy consumption, and millions of mechanical soldiers could easily drain him dry. The effect of Heart Curse soon disappeared, and Han Xiao regained his mobility. He controlled the Mech Legion to surround and intercept the Darkstar leader. His attacks immediately increased by several levels, and the Darkstar leader was once again in a dangerous situation. Because of the Chain of Pain, Han Xiao was not aiming to kill this time. Instead, he was trying to wear down the Darkstar leader's mana. Therefore, the Darkstar leader was barely hanging on. Otherwise, he would have been turned into ashes by the continuous true damage. Han Xiao did not use the Darkstar leader's character summon card to deal with the enemy. The Darkstar leader's main attribute was mystery, which was much higher than his own, so it would definitely fail. Could it be that he thinks he's accomplished in magic, and that he's bold enough to come here alone to kill me? He can't be that reckless, right? Although the Darkstar leader's method surprised him, it was not much of a threat. Looking at the Darkstar leader who was surrounded, Han Xiao could not help but guess the opponent's trump card. Suddenly, a sense of vigilance rose in Han Xiaoxin. The Darkstar leader suddenly took out a black bead from his arms. Its texture was like a crystal, and the bead was filled with dense black fog. At the center was a red dot of light. The next moment, the Darkstar leader crushed the bead, and a cloud of black fog gushed out with the red dot of light. It quickly turned into a pitch-black humanoid creature with black smoke all over its body. It did not have any facial features, and in the center of its face was a flashing red dot. A strange and tyrannical pressure swept out, and Han Xiao only felt the hair on his back stand up. It was as if he was being stared at by some kind of evil existence. This was pressure that originated from the difference in life form. What is this thing? Hereful, who had been watching from the sidelines, could not help but speak in the communication channel. His tone was shocked, and he subconsciously adopted a battle stance. Han Xiao did not answer, and his eyes were extremely solemn. At his current level, only one kind of creature could give him this kind of pressure, beyond Grade A. The Mech Legion fired another round of attacks at the Darkstar leader and the Black Fog figure beside him. The Black Fog figure moved and grabbed the Darkstar leader's shoulder. With a flash of red light, the two of them suddenly teleported and appeared in another location, dodging this wave of attacks. This bead is indeed useful. The Darkstar leader's tense heartstrings immediately relaxed. This Black Fog figure was an Esper ability doppelganger of the Lord of Fallen Arkansas. In order to create a super high-risk Esper ability, it had absorbed countless Esper abilities and had countless mysterious abilities. The Darkstar leader had seen the Lord of Fallen Ark in action before. It was practically omnipotent. He only had one word to describe what he had seen. God. The doppelganger of the Lord of Fallen Ark was the biggest trump card in this attack on Black Star. The organization that planned this assassination was Darkstar's backer, the Clint Kingdom. Supporting Darkstar to deal with the Godora civilization was one of Clint's projects to disrupt the security of the Colton star cluster. Darkstar was just one of the chess pieces used to weaken the various star systems in the Colton star cluster. The Clint Kingdom had been secretly dealing with the Amethyst civilization since a long time ago. After Darkstar was destroyed by Han Xiao, it was also Clint who found a way to send the Darkstar leader away and send him to the Fallen Arkansas. Clint had a secret relationship with the Fallen Arkansas. They did not place all their bets on the tyrant. Due to the reputation of the Fallen Ark, this secret partner would not be exposed. After the Dark Star leader returned with his troops, he had been hiding in Clint's territory, using Clint's intelligence channels to find out about Han Zhao's whereabouts. However, Bloodshedland did not know about this. Han Zhao was the common thorn in the eyes of both the Dark Star leader and Clint. Both parties were like patient hunters, observing Han Zhao's movements. They discovered that in recent years, Han Zhao would occasionally head to the wormhole zone in the Terralam star cluster to look for Hereful. Therefore, Clint thought a plan. Black Star had already proven that he was very difficult to kill, so why not exile him? Some time ago, Bloodshedland's tactic of bringing Han Zhao to the Soul Cluster was the same as Clint's idea. In order to complete this plan, Clint secretly made a deal with the Lord of Fallen Ark and obtained one of his Esper ability doppelgangers. Because they could not command the tyrant, Clint found another beyond grade A that was secretly cooperating with them to help. Although the Lord of Fallen Ark's doppelganger had the strength of a beyond grade A super, its energy was limited. Unless he personally arrived, it would not be able to kill Black Star with just one doppelganger. Clint's plan was to use this doppelganger to suppress Black Star, send him into the wormhole zone, and banish him from the Shattered Star Ring. One had to know that the wormhole zone was not only connected to the explored universe, but also the vast and desolate unexplored universe. Under such circumstances, the Dark Star leader accepted Clint's order and brought the Lord of Fallen Ark's doppelganger to follow Han Zhao to the wormhole zone in the Terralam star cluster to launch an attack. The reason he was willing to work for Clint was because only with the intervention of a star cluster civilization would they be able to build a new home for the hybrids. Originally, he thought that Clint would allow him to build a hybrid Ghidorah home in the Soul Cluster. However, Clint's offer this time was something he could not reject. If they successfully banished Black Star, Clint would build their own civilization for the hybrid Ghidorah in the future flickering world. Looking at the retreating Mech Legion and the extremely alert Han Zhao, the Dark Star leader then looked at the black fog figure beside him that was emitting a terrifying aura. His thin lips curled up. Chapter 693. The Mech Legion surrounded him, and countless cannons were aimed in the direction of the black fog figure and the Dark Star leader. Han Zhao sized up this beyond grade A figure that gave him a sense of pressure. His brows furrowed, and he quickly recalled the origin of this person. Beyond grade, as were even rarer than calamity grades, and every one of them was a top expert in the galaxy. Han Zhao remembered the information of the various beyond grade as more clearly. Black fog body, red light spots. Han Zhao had a flash of inspiration. Could this guy be ES God, which meant God of Esper abilities, a beyond grade A super with a fierce reputation? The black fog figure was very similar to the ES God doppelganger in his memories. Han Zhao sifted through his memories and realized that the possibility of this being the ES God doppelganger was the highest. If that's the case, it can barely be considered a piece of good news. Han Zhao narrowed his eyes. ES God could be considered one of the final bosses of the neutral evil faction. His name was a secret, and he was usually called ES God or Lord of the Fallen Ark. He also had other nicknames such as Guide of Crazy Believers, Tide of Destruction, Life Slaughterer, and so on. Even among the beyond grade, as ES God's combat strength was ranked at the top, and his battle record was extremely shocking. He had never lost a single battle, and even had the record of killing a beyond grade A super. Even the 3 universal civilizations were quite wary of him. If ES God's main body descended, Han Zhao estimated that no one in the entire Shattered Star Ring would be his match. Even the Tyrant, Magus, and Dragon Emperor would not be able to defeat ES God. However, if it was just an ES God doppelganger, although it had the pressure of a beyond grade, its actual combat strength would definitely be far weaker than the main body. Furthermore, this battlefield is advantageous to me. Han Zhao glanced at the wormholes around him and came to this conclusion. I can fight a dozen. These thoughts flashed through Han Zhao's mind, and he completed his judgment of the situation. He took a deep breath, calmed his restless heart, and increased his focus. This was the first time he was facing a beyond grade A super, so he was fully focused. Suddenly, he thought of something and softly communicated with Hariful in the channel. Professor, both our lives are in danger now. It's not the time to be secretive. Tell me, what kind of machines do you have? I need to gather all the available power. Hariful only hesitated for a moment before speaking softly in the communication channel. After hearing that, Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he immediately had a plan. He exchanged a few words with Hariful in the communication channel and received something that Hariful handed over. At this time, the ES God doppelganger moved again and disappeared without a trace, appearing directly in the middle of the Mech Legion's formation. Before the mechanical soldiers around him could fire at him, he teleported and disappeared again. As though there was no cooldown, he jumped crazily in the mechanical army and passed through the defense line of the mechanical army almost instantly, arriving in front of Han Xiao. When the ES God doppelganger teleported, Han Xiao had already reacted. First, he told Hariful to leave the battlefield quickly before retreating. During this process, he opened up compressed orbs and released a large number of nanoparticles, turning them into hundreds of flat hexagonal metal plates. The metal plates looked like solar panels, but the mechanical circuits were more complicated. This was the space pressure plate, used to stabilize the space-time coordinate coefficient. These metal plates were spread out far and wide, forming a loose, spherical structure. They were very far apart from each other. The metal plates were shrouded in a distorted wave, and in the inner region of this sphere, the space-time coefficient was gradually solidified at a stable value. Even the spatial folds were flattened. This was the product of the cutting-edge knowledge, advanced space application, space fixation device, specialized in dealing with all kinds of tricks. When the ES God doppelganger teleported in front of Han Xiao, he also fell into the range of the space fixation device. His teleportation was immediately restricted, but the ES God doppelganger did not stop at all. He gave up on teleportation and turned into an afterimage, flying at an unbelievable speed. Just as Han Xiao had the intention to retreat, his vision suddenly turned black. The ES God doppelganger had crossed a large distance in an instant and was face to face with him. It was almost no different from teleportation. This speed was conservatively estimated to be above 3,000 agility. Esper ability, Godspeed. Chicken is too fast. Han Xiao was shocked and hurriedly activated his mechanical force. The psionic energy reactor of the Mountain Ape mechanical suit suddenly increased, and blue electric arcs appeared on the surface of the armor. Psionic energy exploded through the mechanical suit, forming a 360-degree blue shockwave with no blind spots. It exploded violently and was about to push the ES God doppelganger away. However, the explosive psionic energy shockwave directly passed through the body of the ES God doppelganger, as if he was just a projection that did not exist. The shockwave only caused ripples on his body, and the impact was extremely small. Esper ability, Dimension Crevice. The next moment, the ES God doppelganger materialized again and lightly pressed his palm toward Han Zhao's chest. Han Zhao's hair stood on end, and he hurriedly stopped the space fixation device from afar. He then immediately used advanced void travel and escaped into the void dimension, preparing to dodge this punch. He had a feeling that if he was hit by this punch, he would definitely be in big trouble. The world in front of him seemed to have frozen, becoming countless times slower. Everything was dyed with a hazy light. After Han Xiao entered the void dimension, he immediately wanted to retreat. However, he realized that the black fog on the surface of the ES God doppelganger suddenly shook and instantly broke free from its static state, entering the void dimension as well. The ES God doppelganger opened his hand and clenched it tightly. Han Xiao could clearly see that the surrounding space seemed to have been hit in the middle, and thick light cracks appeared. Before he could think of anything else, the void dimension around him shattered like a broken mirror, and Han Xiao fell out of the void dimension and returned to the physical world. Void travel was directly interrupted. At the same time, the ES God doppelganger followed him like a shadow and approached him again, slapping down with his palm. Han Xiao held his breath, and his intuition of danger stabbed into his heart like a sharp knife, almost causing his heart to stop beating. This was completely an instinctive reaction of his body, and he could not control it at all. He could only watch as the God doppelganger's palm approached him in slow motion. There was no way to dodge, so he could only take it head-on. Han Xiao gritted his teeth and immediately adjusted the mechanical suit's output to full power. All kinds of buff abilities were used on him as if they did not cost money. He even activated a few character summon cards that increased strength, including Nagajan's Muscles Are Truth. Small mechanical components protruded from the surface of the mountain ape mechanical suit and shook like dragon scales, generating a surge of power. The back of the mechanical suit also revealed more than 10 fan-shaped force dissipation devices. Han Xiao gathered all the strength in his body, put his arms in a parrying position, activated his energy shield, and faced the attack head-on. His palm pressed on the psionic shield. Although it looked weak, Han Xiao felt an unparalleled force surging toward him like a tidal wave. Esper ability, Star Toss. Thankfully, there was no sound in the vacuum. Otherwise, just the sound wave from this attack would be enough to kill a super below grade C. Han Xiao's vision turned black, and he lost consciousness for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he realized that his body was flying out uncontrollably at the speed of a meteor, crushing all the mechanical soldiers along the way. The God doppelganger in Han Xiao's vision instantly became a small dot, and he did not know how far he had been sent flying by this attack. The scales on the surface of the mechanical suit kept shaking to dissipate the force, but they quickly shattered and fell off. The fan-shaped force dissipation device on the back of the mechanical suit was torn to pieces the moment it was sent flying. Han Xiao hurriedly glanced at the interface and saw that this punch had caused the armor of the Mountain 8 mechanical suit to drop by 24%. His health had also dropped by more than 16,000, close to 10%. If not for the armor and energy shield blocking it, this punch would have probably taken out 2/5 of his health. There was a series of strength crush notifications in the combat information. So this is the strength of a beyond grade A. Han Xiao was speechless. The frightening thing about God was that even if the Esper abilities he absorbed were very ordinary, they could be stacked and evolve. At the same time, through his own beyond grade A energy rank, he could make these Esper abilities exhibit the strength of a beyond grade A. The most basic forms of seraphic speed and Star Toss were actually two extremely common low-grade Esper abilities, speed enhancement and strength enhancement. Even if it was just a doppelganger, it was still at the beyond grade A level. Han Xiao tried to stabilize his body while activating the space solidification device again to restrict the teleportation ability of God's doppelganger. In a short exchange just now, he had already ordered the Mech Legion to aim all the cannons at God. At this moment, without any hesitation, he immediately ordered the army to open fire. The multicolored light illuminated the universe. Radiance drowned God's doppelganger, but the next moment, it was as if a black hole was created out of thin air. The energy of these cannons turned into a whirlpool and gradually shrank. They were all absorbed by God's doppelganger, as though he had eaten something extremely nutritious. The dim red light on his face lit up again. Esper ability, black hole. There was a limit to the doppelganger's energy, and the Lord of Fallen Ark would not inject too much energy into it. Therefore, God's doppelganger was like Ultraman, a true man for 3 minutes. This wave of concentrated fire gave him a huge amount of energy. King cheated. Han Xiao finally managed to stabilize his body. Seeing this scene, his mouth twitched. I can't resist it, and I can't fight it either. You're more of a gangster than I am. Ha! The Dark Star leader, who was watching the battle from afar, almost laughed out loud when he saw this. Originally, he was still worried that God's doppelganger would not be able to suppress Black Star. Now, it seemed like his worries were unnecessary. In his eyes, God's doppelganger dealing with Black Star was as easy as an adult fighting a child. This time, Black Star definitely had no chance of escaping. The next moment, Han Xiao turned around and ran toward the wormhole. Seeing this, the Dark Star leader let go of all his worries. His body relaxed, and he smiled with satisfaction. Looks like Black Star feels that ES God's doppelganger will threaten his life, so he wants to use the wormhole to escape. Haha, he thinks he's smart, taking the initiative to exile himself in order to survive. This saved a lot of trouble. ES God's doppelganger easily passed through the Mech Legion and immediately chased after him. The two of them turned into streams of light, one chasing and one escaping in the wormhole area, passing through many unstable wormholes. Although these wormholes were unstable, generally speaking, the wormhole with the most intense energy fluctuation would be connected to the other end of the wormhole further away. This rule had not been proven, and it could be said to be the experience of the galactic residents. ES God Doppelganger was even faster, and he followed closely behind. His goal was to send Han Xiao into the largest wormhole in this wormhole area, which would most likely exile him even further. In the largest wormhole nearby, Han Xiao could already feel the terrifying pulling force of space. He turned around to look at ES God's doppelganger, who seemed to be teasing him, and clenched his teeth. He controlled the thruster, wanting to change direction and avoid this wormhole. This time, a hoarse chuckle sounded in Han Xiao's ears, as if it was a telepathic message. Stop struggling. Quickly take the risk with me. Going through wormholes is one of my few joys. This sentence was the voice transmission of ES God's doppelganger. The next moment, he teleported behind Han Xiao and grabbed Han Xiao's arm tightly. The red dot on his face shook slightly, as if forming a smile. So you can talk. Han Xiao felt a headache coming on. Immediately after, ES God's doppelganger dragged Han Xiao into the wormhole. The two of them were instantly swallowed by the wormhole and disappeared without a trace. The mechanical force bonuses of the Mech Legion all disappeared, and they stood rooted to the ground. Success! The Dark Star leader's eyes shone brightly. He could not hold back his excitement and waved his fists. They had finally exiled Black Star, and the mission given by Clint was completed. The new home of the hybrid Godora was just around the corner. It's over. Everything is over, the Dark Star leader mumbled to himself. His eyes were suddenly filled with tears, and he seemed to have seen a future full of hope. The hybrid Godora would have their own home and would live and reproduce in the new star cluster. Everyone would be happy, and there would no longer be any purebloods who would discriminate against them. Although every hybrid looked different and came from a different race, their essence was the same. They were all new Godora. The Dark Star leader wiped his tears and collected his thoughts. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly thought of something and turned around to look for Hereful. He still remembered this Calamity Grade who had not participated in the battle. He had seen the information about this Calamity Grade, and this seemed to be a research talent of a star cluster civilization. He felt that he could capture him to increase his own merits. After searching for a while, he finally found Hereful in an area far away from the battlefield. Just as he was about to go forward to capture him, Hereful's next action made him slightly stunned. Hereful did not even look at him and took out a compressed orb, which turned into a strange-looking mechanical device. It looked a little like a speaker, but had a complicated multi-layer structure. Compared to a combat weapon, it looked more like a sophisticated research instrument. 8 mechanical arms extended from the machine, and the ends looked like the stylus of an ancient record player. The stylus moved along with the mechanical arms as though it was drawing a picture, leaving behind a blue trail of light. The trail of light became deeper and deeper before suddenly expanding and turning into a blue circle of light that looked like a portal. It then contracted slightly and spat out a figure as though it was vomiting. Then, the circle of light closed instantly. This thing is really useful. I'll return it to you. Han Xiao stabilized himself and casually threw a mechanical beacon that was emitting black smoke to Hereful. I'm a researcher. Of course, the things I research are useful. However, if you fly into a wormhole that has not been measured before, this machine won't be able to find you. Hariful looked at the beacon with a pained expression before keeping it in his mechanical suit. This was something that he had given to Han Shao in the first place. Han Shao twisted his neck and turned to look at the stunned Darkstar leader. He placed his hands on his hips, curled his lips, and sent a voice message. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.